Okay, good, Claire. All right, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 12:01 Central Time and 1:01 Eastern Time on November 20th, 2021. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. It's a beautiful day in Dallas. I hope it's beautiful where you are today. Let's get started. Yvette Davila Richards, please call the roll.
Good afternoon to all. I'm glad to see everyone. So many new faces, so many familiar faces. I'm gonna call roll call. Just also some notes. I know people like to be on the chat, but just be mindful to be respectful. I know we have free speech, but just make sure we're respectful of everyone's opinions today. Also know that it's sometimes hard as we're each talking to pay attention to the chat. So if you can try to get your hand up to ask a question when it's a public comment, that'll be great. Let's keep it positive. Let's keep it energizing. And it's a good Saturday. Okay, so I have Rafael Almeida.
Presente.
Yes. Cheryl Smith. I know she was trying to get in. Israel Valderas.
Here.
Dagnell McLean. I know she was coming in. Daniela Ibarra.
Here.
Claire Regan.
Here.
Rebecca Aguilar.
Here.
And I'm here. And I believe that's it.
Please note that Emily Black had a family emergency, so she won't be here.
At Audit reaching 9.
I'm sorry. And anybody else, do me a favor, everybody else, please mute unless you're going to be speaking.
Join the meeting.
Or hear your background at all. Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Okay, so just for the record, I'm sorry. So Danielle McLean's coming in, and Emily Black won't be present. She has a family emergency. And with that, the roll call is called. And Rebecca, I give it back to you.
Thank you, Yvette. Okay, now the approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I second.
All right. I'm sorry, who seconded?
Who's second?
Oh, it was Israel.
I did, but Daniela also did it.
Okay, I'll just go. All right. So the motion is by Rafael. The second is by Israel. I guess there's no discussion on these minutes. All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? All right. I'm looking around. Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Those minutes are approved. All right, we're going to move into the president's report before we go into public comments. First of all, this is November. It's National Native American Heritage Month. Let's celebrate and honor our Native American and Indigenous communities and make sure they are represented in our newsrooms and our news stories. That's important for SPJ. Also, on behalf of the board, I want to thank or say thank you to the SPJ staff members who have left or are about to depart. Linda Hall, Caroline Escobar, and Billy O'Keefe, your commitment and hard work to this organization is appreciated, and we never took you for granted. May you have much success and happiness in your next journey. Also, thank you to the SPJ Los Angeles chapter and the other California journalism organizations that were able to get SB 98 passed into law. Now journalists in California can cover protests without fear of being attacked by local law enforcement. That's what we call SPJ Chapter Strong. Also, thanks to the SPJ Detroit chapter that kept the Danny Fenster issue in the spotlight. The American journalist family told the Detroit media, please don't forget Danny. And they didn't. The Miramar military took Fenster off his plane, headed to Detroit in May. He was jailed for doing his job. Recently, Fenster was sentenced to 11 years hard labor by the Miramar Junta. SPJ Detroit and the SPJ International community helped our organization take a stand. Other journalism organizations also spoke out. Within days, Fenster was freed with the help of former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. Danny Fenster is now home with his family. Again, we show that SPJ defends and protects journalists around the world. That's what we call hashtag SPJ Strong. Also on November 30th, and this I'm doing this for Jennifer Arroyo, who works very hard for us. November 30th is Giving News Day. Let's make sure we spread the word about the importance of journalism and SPJ. And of course, ask for some financial support in donations. Please, members, spread the word. That is, again, hashtag Giving Newsday, which is also, I believe, Giving Tuesday, something like that. But we're calling it Giving Newsday. Some quick notes on our committees.
Okay.
Our committee chairs have done a great job of putting together their teams. Again, lots of new committee chairs and new committee members, along with several who have volunteered to remain. We're thankful for your volunteerism. Most of the new committee rosters are posted, but some will be there in the next few days. Again, just a reminder, it takes time to put together a good team of volunteers, all right? By the way, the Awards and Honors Committee, headed by Brian Collister, has updated the SDX and Mark of Excellence Awards, along with staff member Lou Harry. He works hard with us. For the first time, we have added Spanish language categories to the SDX Awards. This is part of SPJ's move for more inclusion and diversity in what we do. The awards contest open this coming week. Make sure you spread the word, okay? I'd like you to send out some tweets right now that's coming up. We need those entries. The membership committee, chaired by Adam Sennett, has started the new College Outreach Initiative. Now listen closely to this one. They are asking all of us SPJ members to contact our alma mater and volunteer to talk to any journalism class. All right, we can all do that. And of course, talk about SPJ and what we have to offer. It's a great way to get more students interested in SPJ. So for more information on this initiative, please contact Adam. I'll put his email in the chat. Just a reminder that this board meeting is about being positive and productive. That's how I work. That's how this board works. I know some of you like to chat, and I like to look at the chat, but I like to focus what you're saying face to face to us. That's important, because you took the time this Saturday to show up. So I appreciate that. But I'll look at the chat when I can. And heads up, we will be going into executive session later to discuss the possible sale of the SPJ headquarters building and our job review of our executive director. Okay, so let's go into public comments. Who wants to speak? And first, please, everyone, let's try to stay to 2 minutes, because I know, like all of you, we don't want to spend all day in this meeting. All right. Let me open it up. Please raise your hand physically, or, anybody? Just checking here.
McNally Torres said something in the chat.
Yeah, McNally's hand is up.
All right. Does she want to speak? McNally? Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm not showing my face. I just came from hot yoga and I look like a mess. We all need yoga. We all need yoga. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I'm going to try to do this really fast. Two things that I want to bring to the board. The first, as some of you guys know, I'm on the national board of NHA, and we just launched this effort from the investigative task force, where we are going to be reaching out to editors and talking to them about diversity, especially in investigative teams, which is a huge deficit, as we all know, in this industry, that people of color are not allowed to be to do investigative reporting, to do, to be, actually, I wasn't even allowed my last newspaper to call my stories investigations, which was ridiculous. So we are building this coalition. We just formed a coalition with all the journalists of color groups, and we are going to be continue to build this coalition. And I am asking SPJ to please consider to be part of our coalition. We need to bring these issues into the fall. The days of many of us sitting on the sidelines waiting for some angel to come and rescue us and give us the jobs that we should have had long time ago, because we have so many talent out there that can contribute to the efforts in the newsroom. So that's that. I'm just gonna leave it to you guys to discuss, and in the future, I probably will reach out to Rebecca. If you guys have any questions about what does it entail to be part of this coalition, it's up to you. If you want to send a representative to our meetings with the editors, you are welcome to do so. If you just want to have your name, if any of you individually want to be listed on these emails and letters that we already sent to the first 12 organizations. We got some responses. We are created a strike team that is going to be meeting, and this takes a lot of prepping. So you need to attend the meetings in order to participate. You want to do that. Okay. Second thing is Facebook. guys, I was part of the Facebook effort foundation that pays SPJ to have trainers on Facebook. I didn't last in that group. I only did it twice. Why? Because I have concerns with Facebook. Facebook has become, we all know, very evil platform. And I just really have a hard time of, the fact that we as journalists are getting money from this organization. There has to be some standards. And I quit the group. And I'm really having a horrendous time trying to understand why is it that nobody in this group of trainers have raised their hand and say, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. We're getting paid by Facebook, and Facebook is really destroying our democracy. Look at all these things. So I really will, and we at NHA are going to be talking about that too, because as you know, Facebook is trying to spread the seeds around. So, and that is money. It's all about money, that money. But we are journalists. We don't.
All right.
We don't. Okay. So really would like you guys to have a conversation about that, and I am done. If you guys have any questions about the first item, let me know.
McNally, I'm going to try to stay to the 2 minutes, but let me jump in real quick. The Facebook issue, it's something that Claire Regan and I have started talking to with John, our executive director. It is on our list. As you know, I've only been the president for a month and a half. And so it is something that, we have brought up. It's a discussion. It's definitely something that we're talking about. So I want to let you know about that, and I will keep you updated on that. And I appreciate your feedback. I also have my concerns in that area. As for your invite to this coalition with NHJ, I appreciate the invite. That's another thing too. Can you put please your email in the chat? So if any member here would like to take part in it individually, they can. It's open to them. And that's another area that our board will talk about. I think it's a great effort. You're right. I was never allowed to be called an investigative reporter, and everywhere I went, it was usually predominantly white. And so I appreciate one of the things about SPJ, we were really working together to bring diversity in all areas, because everybody knows it's one of our pillars here. So thank you for bringing that information to us. All right. Thank you so much. And I will be getting back to you on those two issues. All right. Hazel Becker, you're next.
Hi, guys. Two things on my mind. First of all, I'm really happy to see so many new faces on the committees and new committee chairs, although I'll be missing some of the folks who have been chairs in the past and have been on the committees. But I wanted to suggest to all committee chairs to think about transparency when you have your meetings. It's a long time SPJ tradition that committee meetings are open to all members. And I'm hoping that that tradition will continue. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And then I have what McNally just said raised a question for me that I want to tell you is on my mind as one of the moderators of the Freelance Community Facebook group. We have been talking about how we would be able to engage with so many people. We've got like what, 2,500 now or something like that in our, am I right, Hillary? Is that, or is it less than that? Anyway, we have a lot of people in our Facebook group now, and I don't know how we would be able to engage with all those people if we weren't in a Facebook group. And so we are looking around for other types of communication forums, and would be happy to, I'd be happy to hear from anybody who has other suggestions. And that's all I got.
Hazel, first of all, I'm glad you brought up these two issues. Committee transparency. I have been the head of the diversity committee since 2019. None of the past presidents said anything about having these open meetings. What I like to do with these meetings, with the committees, is let them get their job done and then share the word with everybody else. But I appreciate your suggestion. And again, if you want to be in on a meeting, you have something to contribute, there is no reason you cannot get a hold of the committee chair and ask for permission to go in. But it has nothing to do with transparency. It's about being efficient and getting the job done. But I appreciate it. But I did want to tell you, as the chair, since 2018 or 2019 of the digital committee, no president has told me that. No one told me that I had to open it up to the membership. Thank you for that guidance. As for the Facebook group, you're right. You have a great group there. I run two of the largest Latina groups on Facebook, and I've also had that issue. One is Latinas in Journalism. And what I would say to you, and this is what I did when they shut down for like a day, I immediately, way back, I started the group again on LinkedIn, just for an option. Go to LinkedIn and start it over there and make everybody who was on Facebook go over there. So if they shut down one day, you have an option over there. But also, what McNelly brought up is different from what we're doing.
Yes.
We're communicating. You're communicating on the freelance group. I do in Latinas in Journalism. I don't think Facebook would go, Hazel, you're part of SPJ, bye-bye. We're eliminating Facebook, that group. I don't think they would do that. It's a whole different thing. But that is my suggestion to you. Bring those freelance SPJ people and say, okay, we're opening up LinkedIn in case there's an emergency where they shut down for a day and you can continue communicating. That's my suggestion to you, since I do have that experience in that area. But great suggestions, and thank you for your input. I appreciate it. All right, anybody else? I'm looking for the hands, that yellow thing. Anybody? All right, anybody? I got to tell you, some of you people who are not on camera, you have some great photos there. They need to improve mine. All right, no, that's it. All right, going.
No, Adam.
There is Adam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Adam who? Adam. I'm sorry, I'm not. Oh, there's Adam. All right, Adam. I thought you had an emergency. All right.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Adam Senate.
On a
Adam Senate?
train right
Okay.
now, but
Okay.
I wanted to say hi to everybody on the analysis task force. We met on Thursday at 7 p.m. We had our first meeting, and John Schertzer gave a presentation on how the delegate system works to our task force. Bill McCloskey talked about the history of the delegate task force. It was a very great meeting. It was very positive. We learned a lot, and we're hoping to have our second meeting in mid-December. So we're really looking forward to it. So
Well,
that's
thank
all.
Well, thank you so much for joining us from the train, wherever you are in Boston. Thank you for popping in. And this, let me go back to what Hazel said. Now, the delegate analysis task force is different. That one is open to everybody, open and more, they get the job done, but you're there to listen in and you can put whatever you want in the chat. That was a whole different one, because remember, this delegate task force was created because of an issue with the delegate system, or to improve it. So I just want to put that out there that, if you want to join that meeting, you can go there, but it's in a webinar setting, so the committee can get the job done, but they will also look at what you have in the chat. All right, anybody else?
Rebecca, if you don't mind, I'd just like to respond to that and say, possibly before you were active, some of the committee chairs have been chided in the past for having supposedly secret meetings. And a big deal was made of it, that the committees have to meet in public, and therefore that particular committee met in public every time their meetings were announced, opened, and I just don't see any reason.
All right, and Hazel, I'm hearing you clearly, but again, by the way,
I'm sorry, this is, you might not see Rebecca. This is Alex. I raised my hand to respond.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm on your screen.
Yeah, I see you, Alex, but let me respond to Hazel real quick. I also sat on the digital committee that was created in 2010. Back then, also, once again, I don't remember opening up the committees, the meetings to the people. But again, this delegate task force is different. And while I keep hearing the past, the past. Everybody, this is a whole different board. We're living in the present. We're changing things up to be more productive and positive. I'm not about conspiracies or secrets or agendas. I'm not like that. I am focusing totally on the journalists out there that are working hard, the journalism students that need our help, and the educators that are trying to educate people during this pandemic. There's nothing, believe me, you guys know, you see me on social media, you see our board members, we're out there. So remember, let's not live in the past, let's live in the present. Alex, you're next.
Well, with all, and I had not planned on commenting in the public comment period, but I am someone who knows the history here. And with all due respect to what everything that Bob and Hazel and Rebecca has said so far, I think they're talking a little bit about apples and oranges. The criticism that Hazel refers to was said at our annual convention about some committees meeting. Those are public meetings. All of the annual convention meetings of the committees are open to all the members, and frankly, anyone at the convention, I mean, even a prospective member who wants to show up at those. There has been some, and ironically, it was actually primarily the bylaws committee I know has traditionally had a lunch at the national convention. I don't have a problem with having a lunch, and I may even do that this year, now that I'm bylaws committee chair, but not to discuss bylaws business, just to get together with the team that you've been with on Zoom. The meeting will be in a public room at the convention, and every member who's interested can attend that meeting and ask questions, and that is an opportunity for the committees to interact with the public. I've worked on committees going back at least 10 or 12 years, starting with something called Project Watchdog, which doesn't even exist anymore. And I don't ever remember a call that every single committee meeting must be a webinar, like what you did with the task force, which is wholly appropriate because that's something that was created by the delegates. What has been the case is that committee chairs can invite people to take place in meetings, to take part. I've been invited to attend a couple of meetings this year and even to make presentations, you know, in my new role as the bylaws chair. That's wholly appropriate. Anyone, the committee chair can invite anyone in, and any member can ask to be invited in. And just as the board has meetings, the committees might also have meetings where they need to discuss things in effectively executive session, but it's not run as formally in a committee. And there's never been public announcements about every single committee meeting, never in at least the dozen years that I've been on committees. When you're talking about things in the year when they're getting things done, the committee chairs decide, let's open this up. And there are certain times when they do that, and they are required to do that really when they hold meetings at convention. So that's what Hazel was talking there about. The only criticism I've ever heard is when they're trying to hold a private meeting.
Alex, I'm going to try to keep you to 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's it.
I appreciate your input. Who is next? Jennifer Ellis. Welcome.
While I understand the desire to want to keep things positive, I am completely against having these closed meetings that you're not inviting other people to. It's un-SPJ. Like, if people are wanting to go to the committee meetings, they should be allowed to go to the committee meetings. I specifically asked about the bylaws, about sorry, somebody's talking, about the delegate task force, and sent an email to Adam Senate that I would like to be part of that. I never got an email that there was going to be a meeting, but then I saw it in Leeds. Unfortunately, I didn't read it till last night. But I mean, I just am completely against this business of trying to push members who are paying members who would like to be part of the committee meetings to see what is going on in SPJ, and to push them out. That's wrong. That's just very this is not the values of SPJ, and I just want to make that very clear.
And thank you, Jennifer, for your message there. No one, please let's not start the narrative of pushing anyone out. I believe in inclusion. I believe in bringing everybody to the table. And I totally understand your point. Again, every committee is different. I believe last year I only had 2 meetings with the diversity committee, and that was it. Usually we just, because we're on different time zones, we deal via email. I had one Zoom with them. But again, I think for the efficiency purpose, again, I was the head of the diversity committee for 3 years. And I was never instructed to open it up to everybody. And it made it for our committee to be more efficient. So I'm hearing you. I think that, again, under this board, we're very transparent. We continue using that word. We're very open. And as you see, and by the way, the delegate meeting, I tweeted it out. I sent it to every chapter. I mean, I'm very active on Twitter. Look it up. It was there. And it was in leads too. So I hear you and I appreciate your feedback. All right, anybody else?
Danielle has her hand up. Madam
Danielle.
President.
Danielle. Okay, all right, Danielle, go.
Hi, I'll just provide some basis. I've been chair of the Freedom of Information Committee and chaired the Ethics Committee last year. So I've been chairing committee since about 2016, I believe. Either that 2016 or 2017. But just some perspective is, my practice was, I would, throw out like a doodle poll for all the different members and hold either a phone video or phone conference or a later on when technology progressed, Zoom conference call with our committee members. We didn't really actively publicize it. The meetings weren't like, there wasn't like a public meeting notice kind of like that you would see on a traditional like local city council sense, but like, when somebody did express interest that they wanted to join the meeting or they wanted to like, they're thinking about joining a committee and like we had an opening, I would invite them to our meeting, let them sit in, stuff like that. So I've had cases like that in the past. We had people take meeting minutes. So, if anybody had questions about anything that was happening there, we would, post those or send those out and distribute them, but, and would disseminate them between like all the different members of the committee. But like, we didn't publicly like do any public meeting notices or anything like that, letting the public know that these meetings were happening.
Thank you, Danielle, for your feedback. I know some of you board members want to talk. Let me get the public comments out of the way and then, I'll let you at the end come in for that because we do need to move on. And, we have a lot on the agenda. Anybody else from the public, not on the board? Am I missing anything here? Because I see 2 pages. All right, no, all right, Israel, I'm going to wrap this up, but Israel, you wanted to say something?
Yes, just to, again, to inform you, Madam President, and the public for what it's worth, when you became president-elect, you encouraged me to get involved. With Danielle, I wanted to be part of FOIA, but the committee was already at 20, and Matt Hall, I had reached out to the president at that time, Matt Hall, to say, look, I'd like to get involved. And he emailed me back saying, look, I've had like 100 people want to get involved. We're only going to allow, maybe 15 people per committee, so thank you for your involvement. We'll get you involved somehow. And thank you, Madam President, because you sort of said to hasten, look, this guy's a former journalist, former attorney. And so I was able to volunteer with FOIA, but the committees, last year were asked to be, 10 to 15 members. I don't remember the former president, for what it's worth, saying, we're going to limit the committees, but we're going to open them up. So, my time with Danielle, it was so much fun to be part of that small group. But for what it's worth, I thought I'd just inform the public as to what happened to me last year.
All right, thank you. And just for the record, I did learn a lot from Matt Hall. And one of the things he said is, Rebecca, it's best to, kind of reset, revamp, relook at the committees to make sure that we get other voices in there, because, there were some people that had been on committees more than 10 years. And that is an area that we don't allow one of our 6,000 members to represent. And people, please mute your mics because, this way we can all hear. But anyway, all right, I'm going to have to close up public comments. Anything else, please email me at RebeccaAguilad50@gmail.com. Again, RebeccaAguilad50@gmail.com. All right, so now we're going to go into the approval of the Region 7 Coordinator appointment. Pilar Pedraza, a reporter at Cake TV in Wichita, has been nominated for a one-year appointment. I'll entertain a motion for the Region 7 appointment.
Madam President, I move that we appoint Region 7 Coordinator Pilar Pedraza.
All right, second.
I second.
All right, any discussion on her? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstentions? Speak up. All right, seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Pilar Pedraza is our, well, not really unanimously. It'll be the other people. Pilar Pedraza is our new Region 7 Coordinator. Congratulations. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the 2021-22 nominations chair appointment of Ashanti Blaze Hopkins, who I believe is here with us, right? Yeah, there she is. By the way, she is an excellent SPJ Los Angeles leader. Can I get a second? I mean, not a second. Can I get a motion to have her appointed?
I think
So
so.
moved.
Nominate Ashanti Blaze to be the nominations chair.
All right, second.
Second.
All right.
Who
So
seconded? I'm sorry.
Claire. So the
Claire.
motion put by Yvette Davila Richards, second by Claire Regan. Any opposition or abstentions?
I
We didn't have a vote yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Any opposition or abstentions now? All right, seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Ashanti Blaze Hopkins, you officially become our nominations chair. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the confidence.
And of course, and by the way, great work to your chapter out there, and please feel just, start putting together your committee. All right. Okay, so we have some reports from the Legal Defense Fund and the Finance Committee and a short presentation by Catherine Foxall about a database that could benefit SPJ. Israel Valderas with the Legal Defense Fund, you're up.
Good afternoon, Madam President, and good afternoon, SPJ members. It has been a very busy time for the SPJ Legal Defense Fund. There's not a week that goes by that we do not get a request to join amicus briefs, the Reporters Committee for a Free Press. They are doing some amazing work trying to protect the work that you're doing out there in the field. It is getting tougher and tougher for reporters to do what they need to do, which is under the First Amendment, to hold government officials accountable, to bring truth to power, and to make sure that the public has the information that it needs to make democratic decisions. And a good example of the amazing work that journalists are doing, since Ashanti is here, kudos to all the journalists in California who made SB 98 possible. Man, if we can duplicate what that law now does, which is to protect journalists when they're out in the field, I would encourage everyone, contact Ashanti. Maybe she might right now be upset with me that I'm saying contact her, but certainly the work that the LA chapter did, we're trying to duplicate that type of legislation across the board. The other thing that we've also been doing is obviously people apply for funds to help with litigation costs, whether it's defamation lawsuits or other types of lawsuits. We had several applicants this year. The committee met about 2 weeks ago. It's a 5-member committee. Part of that committee is also a member of the SPJ Student Advisory Board. What we've done is we think that we have a model by which we would bring college members who are part of the Student Advisory Board, and we mentor them. We really believe big in this sort of teacher-student mentor model, and I would encourage all committees to perhaps maybe contact John and say, would any members of the Student Advisory Committee, would they like to partner with us to see how we're doing, right, to model this work? So we have a member of the Student Advisory Board as part of our Legal Defense Fund. And so we met 2 weeks ago. We had 4 applicants for grants up to $5,000. What we did is we scrutinized this with the help of the members. Claire is part of that. Rebecca is part of that. And of course, our attorney is part of that. And what we did is we had two standards. What we do is, how does this help SPJ? How will it help our organization? Because after all, I'm also a national board member, so I have fiduciary duties to the organization, but I'm also an attorney, which means I have responsibilities to advance the First Amendment. And so what we ask is, how does it benefit the organization? How does it benefit our members? And how does it benefit the First Amendment? And so we looked at the applicants. Some of the applicants, they're not in the trial level of litigation. Others, we questioned whether journalism, ethics, and morality and the pursuit of truth would be advanced. We did grant an applicant to the Florida Center for Government Accountability. Many of you know Barbara Peterson. She's done amazing work down there in Florida. She is now the executive director of the Florida Center for Government Accountability. And they asked that we help them to finance their pending open records lawsuit against the Florida Department of Health. The group, along with a state representative, they sued after the agency stopped providing daily county by county COVID-19 statistics last June. And let me say, I am now at Elon University in North Carolina, but at the time, I was living in Palm Beach County. I had a kid in an elementary school down there in Palm Beach County. And it was so frustrating that the government down there was hiding. They were hiding information. Kudos to the Miami Herald for doing great investigative work, trying to dig this. The Sun Sentinel, Rafael, and the work that they did, holding the government accountable. This was important work. Because we want to make sure that people know what's going on with the government. You know, numbers weren't adding up to how bad the situation was in June. The spike came late when we knew that there was a spike in COVID. So the Florida Center for Government Accountability, they're doing great work. They're going to seek all this information. We want to have access to these documents. The public has the right to know. And so we are so excited to partner with them to help them along the way with these funds. And we look forward to seeing the results of that. Finally, we've had a really good conversation about how often and how much should we join when media organizations say, let's file amicus briefs. There has been a thought in the past, Madam President, that when we are asked to join amicus briefs, regardless of what's at stake, what's at issue, that we should go ahead and just join everybody else. I've been a little concerned with that practice because I think if we're going to put our name into a lawsuit or if we're going to file an amicus brief, that, again, because I am a national board member and I have fiduciary duty, what is going to be the public relations we're going to get out of this situation, right? What is SPJ doing? Again, we have a brand. It's an amazing brand. And we're doing amazing work. So I want to protect that work. And so we've scrutinized more often than not, is this in the best interest of SPJ, our members, and the First Amendment for us to join in these amicus briefs? And most often than not, we say yes. There have been a couple of times when the members, I have urged for them to really think about this particular lawsuit. Maybe perhaps it's not the right lawsuit to join in this cause. Perhaps maybe the litigants, they're too controversial or they're too much leaning politically one side or the other. And so this may not be where our brand of objective journalism would be advanced. And so sometimes we have said no to RCFP's request for us to join, but we have joined. So for example, the latest one that we just joined with RCFP is an amicus brief. It's a petition to the Supreme Court involving police placing cameras at polls and whether or not that's a Fourth Amendment search and seizure violation. RCFP makes the argument that because journalists sometimes meet with sources in their homes, that that kind of camera at polls would be a violation of our First Amendment duty. And then finally, and this is the last thing, the Legal Defense Fund is keeping an eye on a case out of Texas. The case is called Priscilla Villarreal versus the City of Laredo. Many of you know this case. This is a case of a Latina journalist who does her work on Facebook. She was arrested, and you ask yourself, what was she arrested for? She was arrested because she was asking questions of public officials, and the public officials used a local law to arrest her. I kid you not, for asking questions. She has sued the City of Laredo and many other government officials, and she has won. So much so now that the government was saying that under the qualified immunity defense, that they weren't responsible because after all, they were following the law. And the Fifth Circuit said, are you kidding me? This was so egregious. This was so bad. We're not going to uphold the standard of did these officials know under case law? They just went ahead and said, no, qualified immunity does not attach to this case. And this is a big deal because I really believe this case is going to make it all the way to the Supreme Court. So we are monitoring. We're going to be part of this lawsuit at some point with amicus briefs. We're going to defend this Latina journalist, but more importantly, we're going to defend you journalists every step of the way. So I'm excited for what we're doing, but I take it, Madam President, it's going to be a very busy year.
Israel, thank you, and to the Legal Defense Committee. I appreciate that you explained it to us in people talk, not legal talk. Sometimes you lawyer types tend to talk that way.
You have told me that once or twice, Madam President.
Right. Does any board member have a comment on this? Any input?
I have a quick question that I've been wanting to ask in the category of no question is too silly to ask, but what does amicus mean?
It's just a friend of the court.
Friend
We
of
the court. We are stepping in to just inform the court further. It's information that we believe it's valuable to this litigation. Think of it as a necessary party. We're not part of the litigation, but certainly we are filing so that we can inform both the court about the litigants and maybe related issues that apply to the litigants as well.
Like amicable, kind of the same kind of a word.
I think I'm not an English expert. I'm a broadcast journalist. I use pictures to tell my story. But yes, I think the root word would probably come back there. Although there might be an English expert that might correct me today.
All right.
Thank you. You were correct.
Thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. And I know you work closely with our attorneys too that also give us guidance in this area. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. All right, next our finance.
Danielle
I'm sorry, Danielle. That little yellow hand up there. Sorry.
I just have a question. First off, Israel, thank you so much. I believe that is like one of the best things that we do. The Legal Defense Fund is one of the best things we do as an organization. So some really exciting stuff out of there. So thank you so much. I just have a question. Is there any particular examples of the Legal Defense Fund not providing relief to or signing an amicus brief on behalf of an organization due to their political leanings?
Sure.
Do you have an example of this?
Yeah, it was a totality of the circumstances. But yes, so there was a case in New York involving two litigants. This was a couple from Chicago who had traveled to see the mother-in-law, and they had taken their dog. And when they were there visiting the grandma, they took the dog to the groomers. Apparently, allegedly, something went wrong at the groomers, and the dog died. Well, the owner, the parent of the dog, they went on social media. They made comments on social media about the terrible experience that they had. The groomers threatened to file a defamation lawsuit. But before that happened, the two parents filed a negligence case against the groomers. The groomer then filed a countersuit, defamation. So that was going on, and the parent dogs in their defense filed an anti-slap defense in the defamation. Anti-slap defense that was denied. The judge said, no, the anti-SLAPP defense did not apply because social media wasn't a part of public interest. Is this an issue that is of public concern? And the New York State legislature had just passed a law that had changed the anti-SLAPP. We have filed other amicus briefs trying to strengthen the anti-SLAPP legislation in New York. This thing was appealed. Anti-SLAPP denial is appealed immediately on appeal, and that's when RCFP gets involved. They asked us to join the amicus brief. I had two concerns. Number one, the fact that this involved a suit and a countersuit involving negligence, that was one issue. The other issue that I was concerned about is that on appeal, the parents of the dog, the people who had filed the anti-SLAPP, they were being held by Public Citizen. Now, Public Citizen is a consumer watchdog. Obviously, they have an interest in this, but just like people on the right who have public interest principles politically, whether it's on the left or on the right, that was a concern of mine, right? So, for example, Alex Jones. Alex Jones is fighting a defamation lawsuit, right? Certainly, if he loses the First Amendment law and defamation concerns could be detrimental to journalists. But we would never file an amicus brief trying to defend Alex Jones. Again, for those on the right, I'm not, this is no judgment on my part, but that's not someone that we would want to get involved with, not because of First Amendment concerns, but again, Alex Jones has his own public relations concerns. So for me, I was weighing the equities and saying, would this be the case that we want to make the argument that the anti-SLAPP legislation in New York should apply to public comments on social media? And I made the case that maybe on this case, we should sit out. So that's an example, Danielle, where I thought because the lawyers in this case happen to be Public Citizen, do we want to step along? And we said no.
Yeah, I think both of those examples are good examples of like times we might not want to step in. And so I agree with those decisions. I do want to, I am a little concerned. I think a news organization can, abide by the tenets of journalism, can pursue truth, and still have a come in a slant, come in at an angle. I mean, I wouldn't want, if Vox was in like a defamation lawsuit or something like that, like Vox or Fox, one of the OXs, I would be concerned about us not getting involved just because of their like political leanings. So is that something that like,
and that's a concern, right? So here's a good example. Right now, Project Veritas, which is an organization, they claim to be journalists, they claim to be investigative journalists on the conservative side. They say that they're exposing truth, right? Right now, they're involved in a lawsuit against the New York Times and against the Department of Justice for what they say is heavy-handed government investigation. Again, not getting any value judgment in that, but that would be an instance where people would say, well, why not, right? They're investigative journalists, they're exposing truth to power. Take another, for example, an issue with Fox being sued for defamation because they think that they were reporting on the election, yet they're being sued for defamation. I think the committee has to take a very important look at these cases and say, at the end of the day, what is in the best interest of SPJ? And we have to be very careful because any leanings on the left and the right, again, this is not a view from nowhere, but certainly in this tumultuous time, we got to call balls and strikes. And I think that's the best approach we're going to try to take to benefit SPJ.
All right, I'm going to jump in here.
Oh, sorry.
All right, because I'd love to continue this discussion.
Call me, Danielle. We can have further talk if you want to call me.
But here's the thing, and Danielle, thank you for those questions. Israel, thank you for leading the committee into a deeper dive into what we get involved in. And I understand, I'm glad, you have that legal background to look at all the layers. Sometimes we look at something, go, yeah, and they want SPJ there. I appreciate that you're looking at all the layers that involves this. So thank you very much. By the way, who is 970, please? I like phone numbers there, but I also like to know who is that person?
Ed Audie, Region 9.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, now we're going to move on, and thank you again. You know, I don't know when the Legal Defense Fund will talk to this board again in one of these meetings, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows the foundation now of what's going on there and how we continue the work that the past committees have been doing for our organization. All right, so now it is our Finance Committee report, and I'm going to turn it over to the Finance Committee Chair, Yvette Davila Richards. Yvette.
Hi, everyone. Well, we had the Finance Committee met last week where we discussed our budget extensively. I'm very happy with everything that we discussed. We have very robust budget, which John and Jake will get into detail in a few minutes. We will also discuss later on, or they will touch on the sale of the building and how that entails for us. But you're going to be happy to hear how our budget is lean, it's good, and how we're moving forward for the next year. So John and Jake, can I hand it over to you now?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Yvette. I'll let Jake, as usual, sort of walk through some of the main points around the budget. It is a budget that shows a small surplus if we are able to stay within it, and that's always a good place to be. And then we'll take any questions that you have. The Finance Committee, as was indicated, did ask quite a few questions, and everything seemed to be met with their satisfaction. So, Jake, do you want to kind of walk through the high-level overview of the budget? And I'm glad to share anything on the screen, Rebecca, if you think that helps. Okay.
That's important, please. And maybe blow it up a little bit because, you know, I'm on a laptop, so I have to be like this, you know, and it'll help. But yeah, please do, because, you know, you guys took time to put together those documents. I think it's important.
Yeah, and it'll be good for everyone to see, like you said, blowing it up because the numbers are so small that it's hard to see.
So John, just start with the composite view and then then we can go to the more detailed view as we talk.
Okay.
Welcome everybody. Hello. My name is Jake Koenig. I've been controller for SPJ and the foundation for quite some time. I'm on a part-time basis. We have a full-time staff accountant on staff, but I've been through quite a bit with SPJ, and I was hired by Terry Harper, and I've gone through many budget years, and we've had some rough years here recently, but things are turning around, and John is really doing a good job in getting us to focus on what is important, and that's kind of where we're going. So this first view is a composite view, and I was just going to kind of give you an overview. Let's see, that's the foundations stuff. There we go. Thanks. So basically, we've kind of projected a budget that's fairly conservative. We have a modest surplus that we're projecting, and a lot of things go into the making of this budget. And maybe since there's so many new people here, I'll kind of just go through it. But basically, what happens is each staff person that is responsible for an area of the programming that work for SPJ puts their own budgets together, and then they're all rolled up into one, and then that's kind of what you're seeing in this spreadsheet. But basically, so like the membership person puts their membership budget together, then they review it with John as the executive director, and then it's given to me, and then I plug it into these spreadsheets. So this is just a summation, but as you'll see, we have quite an extensive listing of activities that we do. And what I guess I want everybody to know is that all the staff that are involved on this are the ones that are actually putting the numbers together. So the awards person goes out and looks at the history of how many awards we gave out the year before, and looks at trends, and contacts our vendor and says, how much am I going to have to pay for plaques this year? And they look at all the different expenses that might be associated with a particular situation, and that's where we come up with these budgets. So it's kind of, like I said, an extensive process, and we started, I think, the first week in October. I'm not sure. I can't remember actually, but I think the staff had to have them do the first week in October, and then we had a couple weeks to massage them. But it's not just putting in numbers together and saying, well, let's increase it by 10% over last year. We don't do that. We try to break it down into each individual piece. So kind of with that overview, I will say that some of the highlights of the budget are that we did keep in expenses for in-person events this year. So the SDX Awards, our convention, the Leadership Academy, and the Student Leadership involvement, we projected those to all be in-person events. So that kind of changes things significantly from some of the prior years that we've had where we didn't budget for anything like that. So we did do that. We did add back in the full board stipends. So the SPJ allows the boards to have travel stipends. So when the president visits the different communities and comes to the home office and does things like that, that there are expenditures for that. Naturally, with COVID, we had taken all that out, but this year, John wanted to bring those back in. So those are included back in the budget at their full pre-COVID levels. There mentioned about the building sale. There is nothing in here relating to the building sale. John and I discussed that, and we knew things were in the works. They weren't certainly as far along as they are now, but we knew things were in the works. So we decided that there were too many things that would change, and we didn't want to provide two different budgets, which we've done in the past, and it becomes more confusing. So we left everything in. But what I will say is that we do have rent coming in from a tenant downstairs, but the expenses of maintaining our building and cleaning our building and maintaining utilities for our building far outweigh the amount of money that we get in from our tenants. So it would be a positive boon to our budget should that occur, and I can address specific questions to that later. We did add in 2 additional part-time interns. John wanted to do that to give some of our existing staff more help in the areas that he wants them to go into. And I will say that one of the things, we switched to a calendar year. And for those of you who have not been involved in that, it was a very good thing to do from many different standpoints. But one of the positive impacts is that our budget. So before, we would have to guesstimate 6 months to a year in advance what our health insurance costs and our business insurance costs would be. And those were big expenses of the organization. But this year, because of switching to a year end, and we switched and told our insurance providers that we wanted to get closer to our year end, we're actually getting all of our insurances that were in the budget right now are good through 10/1/2022. So for the first time ever, we actually know exactly what our expenditures are going to be with our health insurance and with our business insurance, which is liability insurance for the building and liability insurance for the board of directors and things like that. So it really helps out, because in the past we were guesstimating big swings in health insurance and we could never project what it would be. So we feel that it's very good. It's as accurate as it ever has been. We're going to have 9 months of actual that we know what it's going to cost us, and then the increases, if they do come, would be in the 3 months. So we put in a small increase in projection for that. You will see on this proposed, or on the composite view, that there's a lot of reductions in travel and training fees and things, and those are relating to the Google and Facebook travel and expenses. Because of COVID, everything got cut down, but we're reducing the amount of trainings that are being done in Facebook and for Facebook and with Google, and we're not paying the people with the trainings. The other thing I would like to say is that we've got a couple of grant requests in here from the foundation. For one thing, we've traditionally gotten $35,000 as a grant from the foundation for educational purposes at our conferences. And because of another educational grant last year that we received from them, we didn't ask for that. But so that is in our request here, as is a $25,000 grant to fund again the Future Leaders Academy. And then we are requesting a $50,000 grant from the Scripps Howard Foundation for our additional training that we want to have take place. John, do you want to go to has the summary by program, please?
Yeah, I just real quick, Jake, before you continue, I want to point out that you may, I can't see right now what's in the board materials. There was a slight revision to the budget that, so there was one version where there was about a $2,000 surplus, but then we realized we made a miscalculation on awards as far as what we expect expenses to be. And so the true budget shows actually a $19,000 surplus. So I apologize if we didn't get that one into the packet correctly, if for some reason, but it's a very small, minor correction we made. We caught it late, and we just had overinflated some expenses for awards, and we were like, no, we won't spend that much by far. So it actually helps the bottom line. So I just wanted to say that, and I apologize if the materials are incorrect.
Okay, yeah. So the 19,000 is that after that change that we made to the awards? It was for the cost of the actual awards. And so like the way our reports or our budget works is that we go from detailed to very specific. And so the composite view you just saw was very specific. This kind of breaks down the overall programming that the society is involved with. And in that we've got our training and professional development. And so if you look in those columns, those are our different programs. So the training and professional development is one of the larger ones, of course, and that encompasses our conference, convention, Google, Facebook, and then a lot of emotion.
Please mute, people. Please mute. Jake, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know if anybody's talking to me. So within that training and professional development budget itself, the programming, that's our normal, not our normal, but our educational programming, which is a big piece of what we're doing now. Google, Facebook, and then the conference, and that's why that area is so large. And then we have our communications, which is a critical part to our organization, as you guys know. So we always try to isolate the costs and everything associated with that. Our awards program is a very good program for the society, and it's been going on for many, many years, and it does add a sizable amount to our bottom line. And again, this year we are planning for an in-person SDX Awards banquet. Association management is what we're doing is we do outside work for other organizations that are similar to SPJ, but they don't have enough going on really to hire their own accountant or something. So, and we've done many different things for many different organizations over the years. So we've actually ran people's membership for them, but mostly our association membership management right now is strictly doing accounting work for other like-minded journalist organizations such as ours. And that's what the association management is. We kind of, because of all the items that have been slowed down with the different organizations, we cut back on what we think that our expenditures and our revenue is going to be in that area. And then membership is basically our bread and butter, and it's what gets us through the highs and lows of the year. And membership revenue comes in every month, and again, that's what helps keep the lights on in the building. And I guess what I'm trying to say is like our awards revenue, if you look at a calendar, it kind of comes in January, February, and March, and those are the revenue and expenditures for that. And then the convention is more around the fall time period. So those are kind of given in different quarters, but our membership is, like I said, the bread and butter every day coming in, funds to help our organization. And so that's a critical to the lifeblood of our organization. That's all there is to it. And then our management general expenses that are out there are just the things that, are not associated with particular awards or membership or anything like that, such as the board-related expenditures or audit and accounting fees. Those are just a management general expense of the organization. And then some of those expenses, what you're seeing here is the expenses that are only associated with the society. But I'll show you, John, could you try to go to the budget summary? There's one more that was sent out, I think. Yeah, that's it. So this is kind of like, again, it's breaking things down into their individual components so that you can see in each column is like a revenue stream or, you know, one of our cost centers. So that's how we approach this thing. But you'll see off to the right, we have SPJ only expenses, but then we also are sharing expenses with the foundation. And that's what I keep using the term SDX, but because I'm just used to it, but it's the foundation. So basically the building is owned 50-50 by the foundation and SPJ, and we split the cost of utilities with them. We split the costs of the revenue. We split the revenue coming in from our tenants. Generally, anything that can be associated with both entities, those expenses get split between the two organizations. And sometimes we split it based upon, like I said, ownership, like the utilities. Other times it's spread upon basically how many employees that we have, you know, sitting in the seats using, you know, this and that, that are actually a foundation employee. So the society is the one that runs the payroll. We only have one payroll service, but there's some employees that are working specifically for the foundation, and some employees like John and myself that work for both SPJ and the foundation. And so our revenue, our expenses are split between those two organizations. So I just kind of wanted to explain that a little bit. But as you can see on this worksheet, like I said, we break everything down into their components, and the awards is generally 3 different awards. So you can kind of look at that. And then we break out the Facebook and Google items, and, you know, just different things like that. So I just like to make sure everybody can see something like this every once in a while and look at all the different expenditures that are there. So down in the expense section, those are a combination of direct expenses, such as awards merchandise for the SDX awards, say, for instance. Yeah, and I think this is one of those old ones, John, but that's okay. And then the salaries and benefits of the people that are responsible for putting on those programs. And then all the indirect expenses, such as utilities and legal fees and board stuff, that's all in management general. And so that's how everything's set up. But, you know, I feel like this is, you know, one of the best budgets that we've had in quite some time. And I think that we're going in the right direction, and I'll just open it up if anybody has any questions for me.
This is Rebecca.
Thanks, John.
And I wanted to ask you, so with the possible sale of the building, the money we make from that, are we going to split it 50-50 with the foundation?
You know, I would assume so. I haven't been involved in those talks, but both organizations put in equal amounts of money in the very beginning. And then each organization, like a lot of times throughout the years, if we needed major expenditures to occur, the foundation would come through and say, we know you guys don't have any money. We're going to put this $35,000 into the HVA system for you. So I would put it on their sets of books. So right now, it's not a 50-50 split, but I believe that is what would take place. You know, that would be the only right thing to do, actually. But again, like I said, we're splitting all the expenses with them and whatnot. So both budgets would be better without all those expenditures and maintenance items in there. And I can kind of go through some of those with you if you want. But naturally, you know, then you'd have to have other expenses as far as, you know, with, you know, we're going to do, and what we would do with staff and those are kind of expenditures. But very quickly we could find out.
So this budget, well, if we end up selling the building, this budget is there's going to be a revamp to the budget, isn't there?
Yes, yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, I would suggest it because we'd have so many variance items. When I try to do a budget to actual report for you, it wouldn't make any sense. But the way we've got the budget set up, I can do it very quickly. We just did not want to go through the process of submitting two budgets to you. And again, as I said earlier, when we put these things together, because it takes, we have to put them together well in advance of like these meetings. But the sales prospect was not that far along, as it appears to be right now, to where we would say, well, let's, make the decision and not include any of these things. But we've got, on our books, $11,000 in utilities, another $11,000 in phone charges, equipment rental of $6,200. Then it comes down to, we got building maintenance of about $15,000 because we've got mechanical, we got garbage, we've got cleaning service. It just goes on. And so to maintain a building, it costs a significant amount of time to do it. And to maintain your equipment, you have to pay a maintenance fee. So there's no doubt that we would come out ahead of the game, and then would be able to revamp and figure out, put in what if scenarios of what we want to do with, office space and things like that.
Thank you. And one more thing, I know for 2 years, the board, including the regional coordinators, have not been able to travel because of the pandemic. There's a substantial amount of money saved there. I presume this helped this budget because, we didn't spend that money. Maybe we'll spend some of it. I haven't spent any of the money yet either myself. During this presidency, I was wondering, where's that money funneled into our budget?
Well, basically we look at each year as a standalone budget. And so any money that was not spent, in 2021 goes into our reserves. Any money and the same thing going, if we overspent in a category, it removes from our reserves. So we basically project what we think is going to happen, and then reality happens, and then hopefully it's an increase to our reserves, which we had this year. But in this budget, we brought the board stipends back to the pre-pandemic level. So there's $57,000 of travel in here for the president-elect, the at-large directors, having meetings, staff travel, etc. So again, we're projecting that's going to be occurring, and it's available in our 2022 budget.
All right, thank you so much. Rafael, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, hang on a second. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the reserves. If you can, I apologize if I missed it. I just stepped away for half a second there, but how are we doing there in comparison to last year? Did we succeed in protecting it as much as we wanted to?
Yes. So our reserves actually increased quite a bit last year, or 2021, the year we're in. And a big part of that was because of the travel restrictions and not having to spend the funds that we thought we were going to have to spend and things like that. But we also received, like I said, a grant from the government called a PPP loan, payroll protection loan, that many organizations applied for and received. And so that was $195,000 basically dropped into our lap that we had not planned for, and it was used to offset salaries and benefits to keep people employed. So we utilized the funds according to what the government told us we should be utilizing it for, and so we're going to have those funds forgiven. So that increased our reserves significantly. So it's I don't have an exact figure for you right now because I don't have the financials updated through today, but it's around the $500,000 level, and it was at $250,000 at the end of the previous year, which for an organization this size is not very big. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but you go through $250,000 pretty quickly when you have 14, 15 staff members and health insurance and legal fees and all that stuff.
So if I understand correctly, that gives us a roughly a little bit less than 6 months of a cushion there, the operating costs and the reserves.
Yes, yeah, I kind of have a difference of opinion about that because the auditors will say, well, you have this many days and things like that. But if we're, if
Ballpark.
we're in a situation, that we're in trouble, we're going to be, making budget cuts and cutting expenses where we could, and it wouldn't be just a business as usual until we run out of money. We'd be making drastic decisions.
Yeah, no one suggesting that. It's just that, usually you measure reserves in terms of operating costs. It just makes life a little bit easier. It's a nice little framework. So we're looking at somewhere in that area. Whereas last year we were at 3 months and nervous.
Right. Yes. So that's exactly right. So it's all relative, right? But so it's increasing, and it's a good level right now. And we're hoping to be able to increase that a little bit each year.
Thank you.
And things will change if we sell our building. So that's another little chunk of change that we may be able to count on. Also, just to confirm, we don't have to pay back the PPE?
No.
Okay.
No, we're in the process of you have to apply for forgiveness, but we've met every requirement they have, and all the year-end budgets and audits and board meetings kind of took precedent over that. But Nate Rushton, our staff accountant, has prepared the forgiveness application, is what it's called, and our bank just opened it up not too long ago. And so I'll review that, make that one of my priorities, and then John will review it, and then we'll send it on.
Okay, thank you, Nate. And also, I know Nate has joined us. Thank you for your hard work. Israel Valderas, you have your hand up.
Yes, Madam President, and again, with the caveat that I know you want this board to be positive and optimistic, so forgive me if I sound a bit gloomy and apocalyptic, but as my friend Rafael just hinted at getting in trouble, he said no one's suggesting that. Let me be the one that does suggest that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the budget. I'm going to throw out a lot of numbers, and what I'd like maybe then, Jake, maybe you can help me to get into this. I couldn't sleep last night for whatever reasons. After all, I am a professor and I teach. And so it was wrong for me to open up the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg and Financial Times at 6 a.m. But when I look at the forecast for fourth quarter 2021 and 2022, what I'm looking at is that the inflation rate is not going to drop, it's going to increase. And what I'm concerned about, Madam President, is that there's going to be a lot of gnashing of the teeth next year for our members. I can foresee a future where a lot of our members are going to be let go. And if you'd like to inform people about our good friend so that people can know what I'm talking about, perhaps maybe right now would be the time to show an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. It's unexpected. Yesterday, Estrella TV in Dallas pretty much fired the majority of their staff. And they were just given a severance check. Bye-bye, time to go. They're just shutting down their newsroom. I believe they're only keeping a couple of people. I don't know if Estrella TV is going to do it across the board in LA and Miami. I'm still trying to find out, but yeah, those are the kind of things that are happening. And by the way, we have a friend that just recently, maybe 2 months ago, was moved there, and he moved his life, and this happened to him. So yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up.
So when we talk about having $250,000 in cushion at the end of 2020, let us remember we had that cushion because of COVID. And as Jake just said, we have $500,000 in reserves this year, but the government did pay for 2 months of our salaries, and we had very little expenses when it came to COVID travel restrictions and conference. So I'm looking, for example, at the revenue when it comes to awards and expenses. I can foresee a future where schools at the end of the semester are going to start making announcements and cuts because all costs are going to go up in 2022. And my experience has been that the first place that schools are going to look at is going to be student newsroom costs, right? And the first thing that's going to go is award money. I can foresee, for example, that the award merchandise. I know Jake said this is a conservative budget. I get that. But right now, you couldn't tell me, Jake, what's going to be the inflation rate in second quarter 2022. They can guess, and it's not going to be pretty. So I could foresee that the merchandise is going to go up. On liability insurance, for example, your budget has $967 in black. But last night during the foundation meeting, I did make a point that if we're going to now be like the nation of Israel, traveling and wandering the land because we don't have a building anymore, okay, people are going to work from home. But that might also mean that under Indiana labor law, our liability insurance is going to have to go up if more and more people are working from home. I'm looking, for example, here at all the awards revenue. Again, I can foresee that we don't have that much money. And what I would like to know is if we just had a 10% drop in membership, right? Which I think people can correct me on these numbers. We have 6,500 members, 650 drop. At what point do we start losing revenue? Because when I'm looking here at the budget, part of the budget comes mostly from either grants, convention, and I'm looking at 10.2 and I'm looking at 10A4. Certainly membership is $349,000. There's a lot of wiggle room that if this thing goes south, what Jake considers a conservative budget can quickly get out of hand. So I'm very concerned that when I'm looking at this budget, it's very rosy. And I don't know if there's a forward-thinking look at this budget that anticipates that 2022 could be a very painful year for all of us. And I'd like to see if any other member has questions so that we can go item by item, because I'm concerned that this idea that we have $500,000 in cushion, Rafael, you're right, that's 6 months, but 6 months, if something goes south, that can quickly turn into 2.
Israel, so basically you want to see if Jake and John have like a plan B. It's really a plan B. It's just if and following the research you've done, do we have kind of a plan B? And I'm just going to move it over to Jake and John, because I understand Israel's concerns, but I also know that, when you're looking at a budget, things are fluid. And so I'd like to get your feedback, either Jake or John or both.
Well, I'll start. Thank you, Israel, for those questions and for bringing up this issue. A budget is a management tool, a tool only. It is not, we don't etch it in stone. We only use it as a way to forecast what we expect will be the expenses and the revenue so that we can see if there's any big picture alterations that need to be made, and so that we can sort of forecast also the plans for the year. I've never been in an organization that has budgeted based on projected or what could be inflation. Instead, you budget on trends, and that's what we've done, is budget on trends, including planning for a membership decrease this year, because membership is not looking great this year and we need to turn that around. So that, I do think it is a conservative budget based on trends that we've experienced as an organization over the last few years. I do think as far as a plan B goes, the finance committee once a quarter looks at actuals versus budget. And at those moments, we can change, alter course of direction based on if we're seeing something happening. Like I said, though, the budget, if we get into 6 months in 2022, even 3 months in 2022, and the circumstances are so severe that we think the budget's going to be out of whack, we can present a revised budget. That's not difficult to do. And it's something that we did, I think, in the first year of COVID, or it was not related to COVID, but something of that nature. And so I'd suggest that, while there's some opportunity to think like that there could be some tough times ahead, since I've been here, we've never come over budget. And so we would cut expenses, or we'd make decisions. We do things to try to stay within the parameters that this board approves here today. So that's my first initial response. And Jake, why don't you add your experience to that too?
Okay. And Israel, I do appreciate your comments too. And I, when I say that it's a conservative budget, I mean that there's no fluff in here. And I've worked for organizations where we weren't making the budget. So okay, let's put in $40,000 of advertising and boom, we make our, make the grade. So that's not in here. So, so that's my first course of when I consider something to be conservative. And then as John said, we took one of our largest revenue figures, the membership, and we looked at historicals up through September 30th when we were putting these into the budget. So we didn't inflate the cost of membership over what we're seeing now, and we reduced it a little bit. And so in my view, as an accountant, to me, that's conservative. Now, I can't, if I can't project that if, we lose half our members, then obviously this budget is not going to work, but, God forbid that doesn't happen. But as far as budgeting for revenue coming in from membership, I consider that to be fairly conservative by taking what we looked at over the last 9 months and then reducing it a little bit. And also when I say conservative, I mean, everybody, including the awards guys, have looked and seen what our history of awards, bringing the awards in, has been. And then I will say that we're only projecting grants totaling a little over $105,000 in our budget. So we're hoping and going to be recommending and suggesting that the Scripps Howard Foundation provide us with another $50,000 grant. We're going to ask $60,000 from our own foundation, and those are the only actual grants that we're going to request, and we feel fairly confident in the fact that we would get them. And then it's interesting that you brought up the liability insurance and things like that, because our health insurance is a very big part of our budget, as our salaries. But as you can imagine, the health insurance is a big part. And anytime we can put a budget together where we know for 9 months out of the 12 months exactly what we're going to be paying, to me, that's a conservative budget. So my view of conservative budgets mean that I know what's in the numbers and I feel pretty good about what's in the numbers, and I don't feel that there's any fluff in there. So, but you're right, we're not, if 2022, if things go down the tubes, then we're not going to get as many membership, or not as much membership, not as many awards, different things like that. We're also going to be reducing our expenses. So we're going to try to be reacting to what's going on in the outside world.
Madam President, may I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, yes, but Jake wasn't finished. Jake?
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
Oh yeah, no, I was just to say, so anyway, that's all I was going to say. Go ahead.
Israel?
All right, so let me ask this question. I'm looking here at registration fee at $225,000. I take it that's the registration fee that we're anticipating for the October conference in 22. Is that correct?
Yeah, I definitely need to change the way the budget sheets are reading, because in that line item, we include registration fees. We include so which line item? Tell me what line item you're looking at.
So Jake, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at training and professional development, right? This is where we have all the money that comes in from Google, from Facebook, and as you mentioned, we also have it for the conference. Now, so two questions on the 225 line item. Number one, is that the money we're going to get, or are we going to have to split that money with ACA, CMA, and ACP? Because this year we're partnering with two other organizations. So that 225, what is that based on? How many people are we anticipating are going to go to our conference?
Okay, so that's broken down between $155,000 in registration fees, $10,000 from the President's Banquet, and $60,000 from our J-Expo fees. So that budget was put together by our consultant that we've hired that helped us last year with our convention and virtual convention. And based upon everything that she was seeing, she put those numbers together, and her and John talked about them, and that's where they feel that where we came out. So, not just, yeah.
All right, so let's then anticipate that the forecasting is right, that we're going to get a 5.8 inflation rate in the fourth quarter. We're going to have the same inflation rate in the first quarter. If we take $155,000 and we just have a 20% decrease in registration, that's $31,000. So Jake, if we start losing $31,000 here and $20,000 there, what's going to happen to us?
Well,
Well, note that if things like that happen, you also save on expenses too in a lot of ways. So it's not always
Correct. But we won't have those numbers till June and July of third quarter. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we never know today in December or almost December what it's going to be like in July of 2022. Correct.
Fair enough. Then let's take it to health insurance. When do we have adoption for health insurance at SPJ?
I'm not sure I understand your question. It
So when do
renews in
people get to
October.
when do people get to renew their insurance? Do you do it in the fourth quarter or in the first?
October 1st, 2022.
So we already know our cost for insurance for 22. Is that correct?
We know our cost for 9 months of 2022, so January through September.
So 9 months, January, September. So let's say October. Health insurance are going to go up at the same rate as all other costs are going to go up in the first and second quarter of 2022. So again, when I'm looking at these budgets, what I'm looking at is a lot of the expenses that we anticipate is going to come in third quarter, but a lot of our expenses are going out in first and second quarter. And so what I'm concerned about, Madam President, is that we're anticipating good days in the third quarter and fourth quarter. And what I'm hoping, Madam President, is that when you finish your presidency, you hand over to Claire an organization that is not struggling in October with trying to find revenue because we didn't have enough people show up to the conference. And that's what I'm concerned about. It's those kinds of projections that you're right. I'm looking for plan B, but at this point, I'm also looking for plan C.
Right. And so I appreciate, go ahead, Jake.
No, I'm saying, as far as like with the registration for the convention is concerned, I mean, I'm an accountant and I cannot predict those things. So I can only look at historical figures and I have to rely upon people that are living and breathing that business every day. And that's one of the people that we've hired as a consultant. And that's who John was working with to put this together. So, all we can do is take our best guess and again, not try to inflate things to make us look good. All we're trying to do is get what an accurate figure is, because what this budget is a cash flow document. You'll find nothing in here that's not related to cash in or cash out of organization. So everything's very tight. What we're saying here is if this budget comes to perfection, we're going to have $20,000 more in the bank at the end of 22 than we do now. And we all know that that's not going to happen. But this, all you can do, you can't predict the future. All you can do is try to lay out a best plan and bring in the right people who know, who are experienced with the particular areas of their business and rely on that, and then pivot, as John likes to say, when we have to. And so I totally understand what you're saying is that, things in 2022 could look really bad and our expenses could increase by 5 to 10%. But what I'm trying to tell you is that but the majority of our expenditures, our salaries and our benefits are basically projected through September 30th of 2022. So, I've never had a budget where I can project that that's the case, because we built in for all the new people that are going to be hiring. So whether we have somebody hired in the spot or not, we've budgeted for those people. And so we know, what their salaries are going to be. We know what their health insurance is going to be for 9 months out of 12. And considering the fact that salary and benefits and that are the biggest part of our expenditures, that's why, again, I'm going to come back and say I think it's a conservative budget. Now, like I said, all hell can break loose, and but if we have considerable less people attending our convention, or if we even have to go to another virtual convention, our expenses are going to be changed commensurately. So I give credit to, like I said, to John and that team for responding very rapidly to changes that have taken place. So.
And let me jump in real quick. Thank you, Jake, for that information. Israel, I appreciate the deep dive, the questions that we need to ask about the budget. I also feel just a reminder that the Finance Committee does meet quarterly. And again, if we see a trend shifting where we need to start looking at certain areas of the financial report, we do meet, and of course, the board will know about it. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball. we don't know if it's going to get worse. Yes, we see those reports in the media. Of course, our own members are doing those stories. They're digging deep. I appreciate that you have brought this to our attention, Jake. And I also appreciate John and Jake that, you know, as journalists, we're going to ask these tough questions, and that's important because there's always someone that's going to say, well, why didn't you ask that at the board meeting? And again, I think one of the things that I do appreciate is that we do have a conservative look at this, but Jake and John, I think now they realize that just like, you know, we have to think on our feet, it's the same thing goes with this organization. We're here to protect it as much as we can financially. I'm glad that you brought up about the health insurance because we know in our own personal health insurance how things go up. But right now, I think that we continue asking these questions and hope and trust that Jake and John keep us on top of this budget and this unpredictable financial area that we cannot predict. But I appreciate it, you know, that Israel, that you brought all this to our attention. It is important because it's a lot of numbers. We can get lost in them, and you dug deep. I appreciate it. Danielle.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it too, Israel, because it allows us to explain a little bit more about a boring process to you guys about what we put into it and like how much work we put into it. And again, you know, we're taking our best estimates of everything and getting quotes for things. And so I really like it when people like yourself are asking the harder questions and diving in deeper, as they say. So I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, and following up on that, you know, we do have the finance committee, you know, Yvette leads it, Jake and John are also there on there. I'm losing track of who else is in the committee. But one of the things that is great about this board is when we bring it to you, you're the extra eyes, you're the extra ears. You know, we've had the budget, the numbers, and there's so many numbers close. And so that's why we also appreciate that you bring this because you've dug deeper. We've been looking at it for, you know, a few months, few weeks, and after a while things become a blur. So I do appreciate that because you and the board, and of course our members, you're extra eyes and ears because everybody can see the reports. All right, Danielle.
Yeah, no, thank you all so much. It's an interesting discussion. Fortunately, and unfortunately, we have about 15 years of data kind of correlating mass layoffs in the journalism industry to, you know, determining how that would have an impact on conferences and attendance at conferences. Have we ever done such an assessment? I mean, there's been mass layoffs in the industry, you know, dating back, you know, again, like over a decade now. Have we ever done an assessment that kind of correlates that? And is that something that we'd be interested in doing or be able to do?
I think that would be, just to answer your question, as far as I'm aware, we have not done like it's a thorough, you know, examination of where layoffs are happening in the sector and how that could impact our ultimate membership, you know, retainment or retention or acquiring new members. The convention attendance, I often look at as a percentage of our membership will likely attend the convention. So the important number is there is how big is our membership. So if our membership is shrinking, then yeah, we should project that our conference attendance will also shrink. So to me, it would be an interesting study. I'd be glad to participate in it. Anyone that's interested in helping to do that, we could take a look at that. It is clearly an issue that this organization needs to factor into its future. The industry is changing. We need to serve the industry. So yeah, it's a good point.
Excellent suggestion. Danielle, were you gonna follow up with something?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate that, John. That would be really, I would love to see that. Also, just to ease some of the doom and gloom, you know, concerns, you know, there is a chance that the inflation might be temporary due to, you know, due to the economy or the, you know, businesses being able to adjust to, you know, this kind of new world economy, and also the fact that a new social safety net, which would impact many of our members, might be getting passed in the near future. So I don't know if we should necessarily, you know, sound all 7 alarms right now.
Right. Right.
So-
But, again, it's good that, obviously as journalists, we bring it up because, it is an effect out there. Another thing too, that I just wanted to ask either John or Jake, this year when we have our convention in DC, knock on wood, hopefully, I presume we're going to have a Zoom element to it just in case, people can't go to DC, but they can join us from, Juneau, Alaska. Have we thought about, the possibility of that income coming into play too? I mean, there's one thing with or when you talk registration, are you saying registration that will include in-person and possible Zoom possibility registration? Your thoughts on that?
The convention budget was developed under the sense that 550 people would be there on site. So we did not build in that there would be revenue from a virtual component, though that would be something that could be just added on as revenue. We need to really think deeply about that, and that can be something that the conference committee works on and all that. It is very just kind of, this is a little bit off course, but it is very expensive to do the hybrid conference. What is less expensive is if we were to package the in-person components to be offered beyond the fact to people that weren't able to attend as sort of a, you can purchase to watch these sessions, or we were to build an entire new program that was just virtual for those who want to attend that way. To me, that's probably a better financial way to go than to try to build a hybrid conference, only because especially the size of this event, since we're going to be over, maybe 2,000 people and hundreds of sessions and things like that, could be very costly. But something to talk about down the road. But the budget doesn't project much in terms of that at this point.
All right, that sounds good. I mean, I see already other avenues. Even if we package it afterwards, that's an extra income that people can pay for. And yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Any other board member? Please speak up, because my eyes are blurring on this screen already. Anybody else?
It's me, that actually to that point, Rebecca, that you mentioned having the Zoom component, and I know John, you just mentioned it. I was gonna also ask about that, because even though we're wanting more the in-person, but there's a lot of people who this past year did attend conferences via Zoom and were willing to pay the extra fee to be able to attend virtually. So I really hope we can incorporate that into next year's conference, because even though a lot of us are gonna travel based on all the restrictions being okay with COVID, but I also understand there's a lot of people who will prefer as well to go via Zoom, even though the option is there to buy in to view the sessions later. A lot can still view it from their homes or work if possible while it's in action. So I just want to make that point, that we should look into incorporating that into next year's convention. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvette. I think, again, we're going to look into, I appreciate your input, Yvette. Again, as John said, that's another area that we'll be looking into down the line. Where it would be an advantage to us or a disadvantage. All right, anybody else? Because I'd like to move on and keep this meeting going. Anybody else? I guess not, okay. So now we're going to go into the goals of the 22.
Real quick.
Yes.
We do need to vote to approve the budget.
And do we need to open it up to the public to comment on the budget, or that's only board? I'm not familiar with the procedure. Rafael, Madam President.
I'm not sure there's any need to do that.
Yeah. No, it's the board. We're going to vote on. So thank you, John, for that reminder. I thought, yeah, okay. Anyway, who would like to put a motion for accepting the proposed budget? Motion from any of our board members?
I will make the motion that we adopt the proposed budget.
I second.
And so the motion by Rafael Olmeda, and I'm sorry, who seconded it? Yvette Davila Richards?
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a discussion before the vote?
Madam President, the only thing that I would urge you to consider as we look forward, I get that we can't project We could talk all day long about modern monetary theory, but what I would urge SPJ is that, things like focusing on ethics is important, but perhaps maybe in 22, we start planning to have some kind of online programs, training. I hate to say this, but a lot of our members would benefit if they're going to go into PR, because we know they go into the dark side of communications. And I'd hate to say this, but perhaps maybe we need to start thinking about that. If the Wall Street Journal types are right, that we need to start planning for how will SPJ help these. Maybe coming up with a conference or a training session where we help journalists move into PR, something like that. But I'm going to be voting against this budget. But what I would urge you is to move forward anticipating, yes, perhaps maybe Balderas is wrong and bad days lie ahead. But if I am right, I think we just need to start having things planned for our members in 2022. That's all I would urge.
All right. Thank you for your feedback. Any other discussion on this budget?
Israel, I'll just add to your point. The ability to pivot, as we learned last year, is something that is of great benefit to our association here. And so I would urge you to reconsider that no vote, but only insofar as, voting yes now does not mean we do not get to revisit our budget if things do start going south. And we will be doing that. We will have the ability to do that is built in to this process. And so I don't think that voting yes now hinders our ability to change course later. And I would urge you to reconsider that, what you just said. But not going to force the issue, but that's my thought. Thank you.
To the kind gentleman from Florida, I accept the due respect. But I think we need to at least have one person on the record, at least letting John know and Jake know. Listen, I do not accept modern monetary theory. I think double-digit numbers, historically not seen before, I think that's ahead. And I think it's important to at least have one person on the record saying, FYI, proceed with caution.
We hear you clearly. Any other discussion from any other board members? Just speak up, just let me know. Okay, so we have a motion by Rafael, a second by Yvette. All right, I think, and John, I think we should go name by name. I don't want to do the yay, no. So let's go, Yvette, go by the names of who says aye to this, yes to this budget.
It's a roll call vote, Madam President.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, roll call vote. Rafael Almeida in terms of approving the budget.
Yes, I vote yes.
Emily's not here, sorry. Cheryl Smith. Cheryl. Daniel McLean.
Yes, just a minute. I'm
Cheryl Smith said yes. Daniel McLean?
Yes. Daniel McLean?
Yes.
Daniel.
Sorry. Yes.
We can't really hear you, Cheryl, but I got your vote down. Daniela?
Yes.
And Claire Regan?
Yes.
Daniel McLean said yes. Did I call him Daniel McLean?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And Israel Balderas?
That's a no.
No. And Cheryl Smith said yes. Emily's not here. Rafael said yes. I say yes. And Rebecca?
Yes. So just to make it clear, Yvette, because you repeated over names, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, yes, 1
Yeah.
no. Okay, so, all right. So now we have this vote and we have one no. That's it with the vote. The motion carries with a 6-1 vote for the budget. We have approved the budget. Thank you on that, everybody. Let me see. Let me go. What's next here? Good discussion. I appreciate it. All right, let's go next. Anybody? All right, please mute your mics so I'm not interrupted. Next is the goals of the 2022 strategic plan. I'll turn it over to our executive director, John Schertzer. Take it away, John.
Yeah, if it's okay, we did not cover the audit in the financial report. We probably should make a mention of that real quick. We went, so if I could do that, I'll just cover that quickly. So we had our annual audit, which was actually an 18-month audit because we audited half of 2019 and all of 2020. And we received that audit report back from our auditors that was presented to the finance committee, which included all of the officers of this board. And the audit came back as a, from my view, a very satisfying and a good audit. Basically, it was clean, as they use the terminology that they use, that our financial processes are good, that we have no real issues to worry about when it comes to how our finances have been managed and are being managed. So Jake, I don't know if there's anything more to add to that from your vantage point. The board here does not approve the audit, or it just basically, you accept it, you get it, and you view it and use it for whatever you wish, but there's no vote to approve this, but we wanted to make sure you definitely saw it. Jake, anything to add?
No, that's all I was gonna say, is that gets approved at the finance committee level, and then I do not believe that the board needs to vote on it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, John, on the audit. Let me go back real quick to the vote, because again, Yvette, you repeated some names, and I've just been alerted by one of our board members. It was actually a 7-1 vote. Can you double check all the names, please? Seven to 1 vote.
I'll go
I just
over
want to
the
make sure we correct the numbers for the record and on the record in front of all our members here.
Okay, so we had Rebecca, you said yes. Raphael said yes. Cheryl Smith said yes. Israel Baldera said no. Danielle McLean said yes. Danielle Ibarra said yes. Claire Regan said yes. And I said yes.
Right, so it's 7.
That's correct. 7 yes and 1 no.
7 to 1, and again, the votes for yes have it. The budget passes. Thank you for that correction. Thank you to the board member who alerted me to this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that too.
All right.
Sorry, that was my mistake.
All right, so now can we go into your strategic plan?
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, again. So this is always one of the important things that we discuss, in that this board, now 2 years ago, I think, adopted a strategic plan a little bit differently than a lot of other organizations do. And I'll tell you that as I've explained this process to other organizations that I am associated with, they're very impressed and happy that, that this process unfolded the way it did, simply because most strategic plans are a 3 to 5 year horizon. And as you would note, if we had decided 3 years ago what 2020 would have been like, or 2021, we would have been way off base, and it would not have survived the plan, so to speak. So what this board decided to do is instead to develop 4 identifying statements or pillars. We call it the core 4 of where they want the organization to go into the future, and how we want to be identified and seen in the greater journalism industry. And that includes being champions for journalists, stewards for ethical journalism, fighters for the First Amendment, and producers of journalism's future. So that was the language that was developed. Underneath that was sort of these concrete notions of what we really want to see when it comes to that. So then the board decided, smartly, I think, that we would look at annual goals by which we would drive further towards those pillars. So that's what I'll present to you now, is what staff and then shared with Rebecca and Claire, what we would propose as our annual goals for the coming year underneath each of these pillars. Now, something to note is that this does not include, this document or this discussion will not include what I would consider to be regular course of business. So we are going to have an awards program. We're going to have a convention. We're going to have a Future Leaders Academy and a Student Leadership Institute. So some of the traditional programs aren't going to show up in this goals document because they're already going to take place, and they're already, some of them, embedded as part of those pillars. So with that, I'll share the document with you. Okay. So this was in your board folder. So I don't know, Rebecca, if you think it would make sense to go line by line or to just go ahead and take questions, assuming that the board members had read the document.
Well, you know what? I mean, look, you put, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought I was muted. I heard somebody. First of all, I appreciate that you put your effort in this. Yeah, I mean, I'd like you to go through it. I mean, you don't have to go line by line, maybe just pick a couple of them, especially for our members who are joining us today. I know the board got this, but you know, just some of the highlights of them. I think it's important because you put a lot of work into it.
Yep. Okay. So I'll highlight maybe some of the ones that might have more, what I would probably assume would be some more questions around them. So under the Champions for Journalists pillar, something that Rod Hicks, our Director of Ethics and Diversity, and I have been considering and discussing is the growth in our journalism industry around diversity officers, or those who work for news organizations solely hired to deal with issues of diversity and inclusion and equity in those newsrooms and how those organizations address those issues. What seems to be not existing at this moment is an opportunity for all of those new individuals, many of them new, to get together and share best practices and to kind of chart a future together around what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like in journalism. As longtime convener, our organization is seen as convener or plays that role a lot. We think SPJ can be a place that does that. So the first goal is to convene a council of diversity officers, name, you know, just as a placeholder there. It could be something completely different, but essentially a group, an opportunity for these individuals to gather together, share best practices, learn from each other, and drive forward. It will obviously help us in our organization because we'll understand and hear those issues that are being presented, and that we'll be able to react to them as we should as a membership association. So we'd like to try that in this coming year and see if we can get that established. It'd be kind of a fun goal to try to achieve, and it would accomplish quite a bit. Another thing that is maybe that is carried over from last year that we did not accomplish just because COVID got in the way was the idea that we want to build chapters. You'll see that we have in here 3 new professional chapters, which would be the first time in a while that we've sort of stated a number and a goal to try to do that. So we're going to try hard to establish those, but also that where chapters right now are not being seated or does not seem to have a lot of traction, to instead pilot a different way for SPJ members to gather together geographically in those areas. So it could be a smaller community or a smaller city, so on and so forth, and still have what we would essentially be meetups of SPJ members as an opportunity for people to get to know each other, to build that SPJ experience into their community. Eventually, it could result in a chapter, but it also could be on its own a pretty effective way to keep members engaged with each other, to add value to their member experience, and to give us an opportunity to locate and identify members in these areas. So we'd like to see that still come through this year, where either a chapter has not been successful and it's been tried, or one maybe just closed and we still want to keep some embers going in that community, that kind of thing. So I'll move on from that one, and then we can address questions as they go or afterwards. Under the Fighters for First Amendment, the board decided in the September meeting that they really want to take efforts to get a director of advocacy and to stand up in an advocacy effort focused on DC and focused on First Amendment issues. So we'd like to see that get in place by fall 2022. And so that would be there'd be a lot incorporated in that. So that's a pretty lofty and big goal, but built into that would be a whole plan around how we're going to try to achieve resources for that, as well as what is that position going to do, the job description, and how does that going to execute. So by the end of this coming year, we hope to have that in place so that then in 2023, we really launch forward with the program, whatever that program is that we work to develop over the course of the coming year. Under the Stewards for Ethical Journalism, so a lot of this work is underneath our Director of Ethics and Diversity, Rod Hicks. Right now, we want to establish a journalism ethics symposium, and this is something that was in the original proposal to Newmark Philanthropies for this program, but never really came to fruition, again, because of COVID. But we think we're already having a lot of people come to view and attend the SDX awards ceremony. Why not give them something in that day leading up to that would be educational and add value to their attending? And that would be a journalism ethics symposium. So it could be an anchor event attached to the SDX awards presentation to kind of make it a nicer, full-scale education class / celebratory event. So we'd like to, that's the concept. That's where we'd like to go with that. And under producers of journalism's future, I will say under this one, we really want to do more for our chapters. We want to add more education, training, professional networking for our chapter leaders. So we want to build out training modules. We want to hold regular meetings. To me, effective associations know who are within each chapter are doing the various components of the work, and we pull them together and coach them and have them coach each other and give them opportunities to connect. So that's something we want to increase and do a lot more of in this coming year. So that's underneath here as well, so that we can build out more chapter strength. And then in internal SPJ matters, and these are things that don't fall into the pillars necessarily, but help keep the organization functioning. We want to do a survey. It's been a while since we've surveyed our membership. It's time to find out again, what are their wants and needs of the member experience, especially as we're trying to drive towards greater membership numbers. So that's something we'd like to do. We also want to get a task force going, and maybe it's just a thought group at the start, but a group of folks who can help analyze our SPJ volunteer structure. And is it working for us? We have 12 regions. Those regions are broken out geographically, and those regions work with chapters and there's also communities that come into play. And then there's committees and task forces and so on and so forth. We have a lot of ways for people to volunteer in this organization. So maybe there's a way we look at that holistically and say, okay, what do those volunteers need? How do we help them be successful? How does the structure help or hinder their success? And so it might be a good time to really investigate that. And then, yeah, so I'll leave it at that because there's obviously more goals within there, but and open it up for question or discussion. Again, this helps drive staff activity in the coming year. This gives us a thing to look at and to work on. This is what I would report on to you every board meeting. How are we making progress on this? So it's a nice to have it as a one consolidated document that can help us stay organized as we try to build towards these pillars.
Thank you, John. First of all, I just want to let you guys know that Claire Regan and I meet with John every Tuesday to talk about, what he's doing, what we're doing, and he did present this to us. And we did have some suggestions ourselves. And one of the things that I did ask him is, what do you mean by diversity officers? Are you talking managers in journalism? Are you talking reporters who have been given the immigration beat? Up there on your up on the Champions for Journalism, when you say you want to put together a council of diversity officers, who exactly are these people within SPJ?
So, a lot of industries are hiring chief diversity officer or director of diversity. We did with Rod Hicks, or someone whose staff position is almost exclusively focused around issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a growing position in a lot of organizations. So we would need, as part of this, we would need to determine and do an audit and assessment of where those positions are located, who occupies them, and things of that nature. So even doing that kind of a study could be valuable to us in the end, even if we don't end up convening a council.
So these are people that are basically like in other staffs. Like, let's say IRE has a diversity person. Maybe they're not a journalist, but they're formally educated in DEI. Those are the people, right?
Right, or Gannett, or the San Francisco Chronicle. I know we have one of our foundation board members serves in that role, or newspapers, TV stations. There's a lot of obviously interest in that issue, and so we're just there to try to help.
All right. Another thing I'm a little concerned is that there's a lot of Rod Hicks in here, and I was wondering, are you sure you're not overloading him with a lot of work? Because I know that he's been in dialogue with our ethics committee chair. He has a lot of projects here. Will he be able to help you meet these goals? Because when I look at it, there is a lot for him.
Yeah, that's a good question. Other than the things that fall just under ethical journalism, which is his job description. And so a lot of it is already built into what we're expecting of that role annually anyhow. The only other thing is that first thing about the Council of Diversity Officers. So I think he had the capacity to manage that.
Okay. And another question I have is, what are we doing to make sure that Rod Hicks is, I guess, stays, I always say about formal education. Like I personally, there's so many people that reach out to me to speak on diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I'm like, okay, just because I'm a Latina, it doesn't mean I'm an expert in that area. And I seriously am looking at the Cornell University certification because I want to have that formal education in this area. So what are we doing at SPJ to make sure that Rod Hicks continues growing in this area that is very much in demand? What are we doing to make sure he gets that formal training? I'm not saying go to Cornell, but I'm just saying some training, because it's always assumed, I'm just going to put it out there, that because we're people of color, we know this. Believe me, we don't. Not all of us. I'm not saying that Rod Hicks doesn't, but I just want to make sure that he gets continued education in this area to make him better at what he's doing. What are we offering us?
Well, so good question. Like for any staff member, we built in professional development opportunities and even dollars to help provide for those opportunities so that they do all grow in their roles and their positions. And Rod is no different. And so in the course of the year, we work through my coaching, my biweekly meetings with my staff, coaching conversations about where do you think you need to grow? Let's identify and find a place for you to go do that. Is it a course? Is it a resource? Is it a book that, you feel like you need to read in order to be able to, so I would say, I don't have anything today to say specifically what Rod is going to do, but that's just a part of my management style and my coaching of my staff. So likely, almost definitely, yes, you'll get some added training, some more, he needs to stay on top of those issues, and he knows, and that's part of what he does. So I do expect that will happen in the coming year.
Beautiful. Yes, it's very important because again, it's always assumed pretty much every week I get somebody says, hey, can you talk about diversity inclusion? And I'm like, I appreciate that I'm invited, but I'm no expert in the area. There's just a certain area that I am knowledgeable about. Excuse me. Yeah, that's about it in that area. I'm looking at Claire. Claire, you wanted to?
Yes. Quick question under producers of journalism's future. If you could scroll down, I'm so pleased to see the second bulleted item there. And I was just wanted to give John a chance to explain, plan of action. Do you have any ideas for making that happen? I know at the Deadline Club level, it's a challenge to start college chapters. And I just thought maybe you could share your ideas on how to make it happen, especially with the underrepresented students.
Yeah, so good question. This past year, we actually had a task force that looked at the whole issue of student chapters, and out of that came, if you remember, a change of requirements to make it easier for campus chapters to form. And so this will be like fueling based on the rocket boost from that. We can now go send messages to campuses saying like, hey, it's very simple to establish a chapter. Let's help you, and so on and so forth. Part of that task force, though, was also they identified several institutions that are minority serving HBCUs or the like, and who the contacts are there, and they even established many contacts there with people who are already interested in this. So it's just on us as staff to keep pounding the pavement and getting out to these folks and saying, hey, you expressed interest at one time. How can we help you get these established? Here's a regional coordinator we can connect you with who can help you take you through the steps. So it's all in the execution, but I feel like we have the contacts and we have the sort of the target list that is going to be helpful.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Claire, and I wanted to follow up on that. I think also as board members and also any of the members who are here, we can also do our part. Case in point, I graduated from Bowling Green State University. That's John's hometown. Dwayne Pullman, the head of the ethics committee, he also graduated from there. He was there in November, visited with the dean of the journalism department. And he said, come on, let's revive our SPJ BGSU chapter. And so he met He got the professors that are going to be the advisors. He got the students already. It's going to be revived. And so I think that not only, I mean, I love that staff does this, but I think we also can do our part, especially start with our alma maters. And you know, and so now I'm going to be involved with Bowling Green because again, I graduated from there, but I'm also very much involved in making sure I speak to the, for example, the University of North Texas SPJ chapter. But I say that we all have a little part of this pie. And that was a great question, Claire, because I think we can all do our part too. So anyway, thank you, Claire, for that question. Let me see, Danielle McLean.
Hey, thank you so much, John. This looks like a really great strategic plan. I'm very enthused about a lot of this. In terms of you know, developing 5 to 10 new chapter resources to help improve chapter operations, and then also the survey. I would encourage you guys to do to include in that survey feedback from specifically from chapter leaders, presidents, and treasurers about like their recruiting efforts and in terms of like you know, trying to help expand and provide different opportunities for those chapters. I think some of the things I've been hearing about is just like basic functions like you know, being able to point their members to like various discounts that SPJ has to offer, or various you know, trying to, when they're like signing up for SPJ, you know, being able to find their chapter into the sign up, or like change their chapter like when they move. So there's just like a lot of various functions that I think could be improved. I think like including in that survey things from specifically from chapter leaders on how to make their lives easier, and in terms of like we're doing that kind of recruitment, I think would be really beneficial here.
Thank you, McLean. Danielle, I'm sorry, Danielle. And I think you have some excellent advice and tips on that one, because I also get the same thing. That's why when I started my presidency, I said, we're going to be hashtag SPJ chapter strong. I mean, we can continue laying seeds all over the place for new chapters, but if we can't help our existing chapters now, then what are we doing? And so it's important. One of the things that I do want to share with the board and the members who have joined us today, and whoever watches this video in the future, is that all the committee chairs, and Claire has been on the conversations with the chairs too, is that I'm not about busy work with committees, okay? I told all the committee chairs, at least think of 2 projects this year that you can share with the chapters and that the chapters can share with the members, because we have to help them become, you know, we have to help them with projects. The collaboration is the best way to help chapters stay alive. I know that there's some chapters, they're hanging on by a thread, okay? And so, you know, I think together we work in helping chapters survive. And I love what Danielle said right now, that so many good tips there. By the way, board members, the ones that you're giving these tips today, you know, jot it all down and shoot me and John and Claire your ideas, because even though I'm jotting everything down, you know, I'd like your ideas just to make sure that we don't miss what you have suggested to help our chapters survive, okay? All right, Israel Valderas, Mr. Positive. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, all right.
No, Yvette was first.
All right, Yvette.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to get that in because I know.
We're gonna get, Yvette, either way we're gonna get to you. No first, second, or third, okay?
No worries, no worries. Thank you. John, thank you for this strategic plan, which is nicely detailed. My question was, when you mentioned the professional development training for chapters, which is a great thing to do. Chapter leaders and chapters need that in order to grow and recruit more members. We just had the Leadership Academy, which was successful. My question is, like, what ideas do you have to provide more professional growth during the year for the chapters, since this is a focus and part of the strategic plan?
Yeah. So I would say briefly now, but you know, we could definitely dig into it more in the future. The first thing we need to do is make sure we are clear on who all these chapter officers are. And our database has been lacking in that information, and it's only because we don't get good information from the chapters all the time. So I could probably tell you with almost, you know, good certainty that who the presidents are, but I don't necessarily know who the treasurers are. I don't necessarily know who's in charge of membership recruitment at the chapter level, if there is anyone in that role, and there ought to be. I can't tell you really who's secretaries. And so it'd be first identifying who they are, and then building out, all right, maybe this month we gather together on Zoom, all the chapter presidents for, you know, best practices. We provide a little professional development training, and we provide an opportunity for them to explore the issues and provide feedback to us on what they want. Next month, we do it with the treasurers. Next month, we do it with so on and so forth, and try once a quarter maybe to get all these segments of our population together. So that's what a lot of other associations I've seen have success with. And it's all starts with just getting to know who they are, though. And then it's almost, after that, it almost runs itself. So.
Okay, thank you.
First of all, John, that's an excellent idea. And I think that, you know, again, by the way, I tweeted every chapter that I have on Twitter and sent it on LinkedIn to join us today, because I'd love to hear from the chapters. You know, I see very few chapter leaders here. And I always say, you know, if you want your voice heard, come to our board meetings. I try to attend chapter events, as many as I can, and my schedule is pretty full, but I like what you're saying there. I think quarterly, you know, we start from the top with the president, and they're going to tell us who does what or whatever. But I think we need to have a roundtable, and maybe also bring in some of the most successful past chapter presidents, because there's so many past chapter presidents that are really good. And I don't want to brag about Claire, but I know she was a president for 3 years for the Deadline Club. You're not a president of a huge chapter like that and not succeed without having some tips that I would wish she, you know, if she's invited to a round table, that she would be able to share it. So again, and I know many of our board members are on boards right now, local boards. So I love that idea. I hope we can get that done, especially while I'm president. Because it's a good start. And again, it's a way to, again, it's our hashtag SPJ chapter strong. We're saying we're strong. We're here to help you. We're going to help you survive. At the same time, we're going to start new chapters. So I like that. Very positive, John, very positive. All right. Anybody else?
To that point real quick, just to add, it helps having this forum like that, because it'll help build up our chapter leaders and the members, so that we can also recruit more people once they see that all this professional development is being done, and they won't feel lost. So if we pursue trying to get them to become members and active in their chapters, that's how they'll keep growing in the organization, and therefore join not only the local boards, but then national boards. So this is great. Thank you.
Thanks, John. All right, Israel, go for it.
Yeah, and let me remind people too, please, you can support by always tweeting out SPJ Strong, right? SPJ Chapter Strong. That's another way to also help our chapters. A couple of things about sort of this looking forward strategic plan goal. And I have a couple of questions for you, John. Some of them predate me, so I'll just put it on the record. What's my concern? On the issue of the Council of Diversity of Officers, can you explain to me how it's falling under the ethics and diversity program? Are we now as an organization saying that DEI principles are ethical principles?
No, not necessarily. It's only, that's more or less we have a staff member who basically manages those two sort of segments of our work in a sense. So that's why it's there.
That's what I thought. So here's my concern. God bless Craig Newmark. And I know that he's big on ethics. So if he watches this, I love you for it. But what I hope that we're not doing is that because we want Craig Newmark's money, that we start calling everything ethical. I think we need to be very careful, John. I get you that there's a lot of money out there. And the idea is, here's our strategic goals. You people with a lot of money, you can fund these goals. And that's a great idea. That's a great way to bring money. But what I don't want is, I don't want people with big money to come in and tell us how to run our organization, because it's been my experience. And if I could tell you this, down in South Florida, people with money want to put their name or their mark when they give their money. So I'm a little concerned that I hope that's not where we're going. And if we are, maybe we need to have a conversation that's broader than that. That's one.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but John, there was no from the Newmark people, they didn't say we had to call it ethics and diversity, correct?
No, they did not. That was sort of our call to try to amplify two issues that were important at the moment that we developed that position. But you're right, Israel, absolutely right. I think we need to be very careful to keep those things in their proper places.
Their proper lanes, yes. Okay.
Right.
Good.
Second, again, this predates me. I know there was a conversation about whether or not we were going to call this position that we want to establish in Washington, D.C., again, to push people on Capitol Hill to matters of First Amendment, right? Danielle and I were part of the FOIA committee when we were talking about, can we get federal legislation that is anti-SLAPP legislation, right? Those kinds of things. And I know there was round and round around, should we call it a lobbyist? Even though lobbying is promoted under the First Amendment, a lot of people had a problem calling it lobbyist. I personally have a problem calling something a director of advocacy, because already we look at the numbers, we look at the data, we know that the public doesn't trust the media, the news media, and we attach the name advocacy. Yes, you're right. We shouldn't be concerned about what the Fox News people think, but still, right, perception sometimes is reality. So I'd like to at least urge you to think, let's not call it director of advocacy. Do we want to champion First Amendment principles that help our members? Absolutely. But again, we're going to be on Capitol Hill, and what we're urging people is pass legislation that is good for us, like SB 98. So that's just I know that predates me, but I thought let's continue to at least have a conversation over that. And then on the issue of the Leadership Council, did we record any of the presentations you all had 2 weeks ago?
Which presentations are you referring to?
The leadership academy you had at
so the Future Leaders Academy?
Yeah.
No, we did not record that. No.
So I think we missed a big opportunity there, because I know that people applied for that, they got selected, they got to fly down to HQ. It was a great time for those people. But I think we missed an opportunity to record those presentations, to post them on our website so that all our members can benefit from our Leadership Academy. I appreciate that. We're looking forward to try to get more people in. But again, I think we need to think about all our members. I watched your presentation in 2019 when you were talking about, the growth and communities and doing all these programs. But what I really urge you is we need to find out, what do our members want? What do our members need? I am not aware of any SPJ-wide survey where we have asked our members, what do you need? And I think we're going to do it. I hope we do it, especially if the economy goes down. So I would urge you, I am a data-driven person. I like data. I like numbers. I like to do surveys. Yes, I'm an academic. I get that. That's boring. But I think we need to start looking at all the people we have, very easily create surveys to say, what do you need? Because is it ethics? Okay, we'll give you ethics. Is it leadership? Okay. But I think some of these strategic goals has to be data-driven. God love you that you are a forward-thinking futurist, but I'd like to see more data from our members. And then finally, if we are going to now be nomads and we're not going to have HQ, I see a lot of staff. I see a lot of working together, and I'm not sure if we're going to have next door person to talk. And so I'd like to know, maybe for future or emails, how are you going to manage a staff that may be somewhere else, at home, on another office? And how is this going to be collaborative, especially when we're looking at hiring 3 new people? Because that's going to involve training. That's going to involve letting know of what's the SPJ mission. And so all of this that I'm seeing over here, yes, staff driven, wonderful. But I'm not seeing how are you going to manage a staff that is no longer down the hallway. So those are just a couple of things to think about.
John, let's take that last one first, please, because I know that you've been doing a lot during the Zoom world for the past 2 years in your managing style and how you've been able to rally the troops. Please share that part for us or to us.
Yeah, so it's a question that it can't be answered directly because we're going to, have to develop some new procedures and protocols as we continue to grow into that kind of a model. But we have operated that way the last 2 years. And, the organization's had a couple of successful years in terms of, output and what we've been able to achieve. So I do think it's possible. It's not, I'm a creature of an office environment. I walk down the hallway to talk to somebody kind of thing. So I had to train myself on how to get more comfortable with, instead of doing that, we pop on Teams for a video call for 20 minutes and we get the job done. And so it's things like that we need to build in some cultural things as far as making sure people are aware that that's how we operate, that you're always available online from this time to this time. And in most of the spaces I'm looking to sign on with in the interim, at least, if not longer than that, have conference rooms. And, we would have expectations that once or twice a week, we get at least once a week, we're all together, a couple times a week, segments that are highly collaborative in different ways are together. So we'll have to build that out, but I'm obviously need to consider that and make sure that we're staying as collaborative as possible.
All right. And just a reminder that this is a strategic plan. No names are set in stone. So the director of advocacy, we're going to be talking about it. That's important. And back to, I wanted to talk about the Future Leadership Academy. It was the first time. I appreciate the feedback of offering it to other people, but on the other hand, it was special to these future people that can lead an SPJ. But I hear you. And again, it was the first time that, Karen and John had put this together. And, but, that is also something we can discuss about whether we share it after it happens, after it happens. So anyway, I don't want to make this up. Last year we had a 7-hour board meeting. I don't want to make that. Okay, guys, I'm just telling you that right now, or 6 hours. All right, let me see. What is next? Anybody else? Say it now. Okay, no more. Okay, all right. Thank you for that. Let me see. All right, let's skim over this as quick as we can, John. Now we're going to talk about the possible sites for our 2023 convention. Again, nothing set in stone, people, just ideas. John, go for it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As I do that, for the new board members, Katie, I think, has jumped on the call. Maybe it'd be a good idea for Katie to introduce yourself again for them and for those attending the meeting to know a little bit more about you.
Hi, Katie.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Riggs. I am SPJ's contract, meeting, and event support person. I don't know exactly. I don't even know if I actually have a real title.
We change your title every time we talk to each other. Yeah.
I work with John and Karen and the board and other staff in order to help make sure that everything we do when it comes to the convention is a success. And then I am the person that helps look for locations, including the cities and the venues, and work with any organizations as well that we might be partnering with. So that's just a little bit about me. I don't want to take up too much time. So I'll let John jump in.
Thanks, Katie. Katie comes with a wealth of experience in this industry as far as putting in conventions, especially for associations like ours. So we're lucky to have her in my mind, and she did a great job of helping us pivot to a virtual event last year. And we're all very excited to try to get to a full in-person event this year. And she's been very helpful in navigating that so far. But we're not talking about 2022. We're forecasting out a little bit to 2023. You usually have to plan these kinds of events years in advance. So we're probably even a little bit behind compared to some associations, but it'd be a good idea for us today for the staff to get some guidance. No decisions need to be made today, but we could get a little bit of guidance from you all if we're heading in the right path and if there's a particular option that you see as more favorable than another. Because the next step would be that we would actually, as staff, do more research into these properties and actually do site visits where applicable to make sure it would suit us and our event. Right now for 2023, we don't have a partner organization. We have a couple of ideas on places we might pursue partnerships, but so far this would just be a SPJ only event. And then in 2024, we're talking about going back with CMA and ACP. So in a sense, it's a little bit of an odd duck in the midst of these years, and that we'll be on our own, but not always a bad thing either, because it gives you a chance to just fully do what you want for your organization to do. So as a data point, this is where we've been for the last, thinking about what would be 10 years hence of 2023. So all the way back to 2013. We tend to like locations that are on East Coast. So we've done Washington, DC, Baltimore, we're coming back to Washington, DC, Orlando, so on and so forth. We've been out to the West Coast a couple of times, both to Anaheim. This is, and before that we had before too, but this is in the last several years. And then New Orleans is always a favorite, so on and so forth. So this gives you a sense of where on the map we've landed. Now, the density of our membership tends to be in Region 1, which is the Northeast region. We'd also do have a sizable population though in Region 11, which is California and that area. So, what we're advocating for, what we heard the board say at prior meetings, is they would like us to look west for 2023, given that 2021 was set to be in New Orleans, even though it didn't happen. 2022 will be in DC. So it's been a while since 2017 since we've been out onto Pacific Coast time. So that's just for you to note as we go forward. So with that, we did study 3 cities that really on the West Coast seem to meet the size of organization we are, our culture, what we're looking for, and what we're looking to achieve. And those 3 cities are Phoenix, San Diego, and Las Vegas. Phoenix, Arizona, 3 properties here that we're looking at. Any questions you have about any of these, Katie can definitely address. The one in the middle there is probably what would be our favorite at this point, just because they give a lot of great financial concessions, including free Wi-Fi in the meeting rooms. That tends to be a huge expense in any of these events, and they rarely will give it to you for that, but they have the room rate, F&B, all look very solid for us. We tend to spend up to in the $25,000 to $35,000 range for F&B, so we think we could meet that. The room rate, it's always great to stay under $200 if you can. So the dates on that, though, as we're thinking about dates, would be the middle 2 weekends of October. So either of those would work. So, and then you'll see in all these other properties what dates work for them. So the other 2 properties in Phoenix would be the last weekend of September. And you see some of the differences there. I'm going to walk through this relatively quickly, and then we can ask questions as we go, just so we can get this out. San Diego, there's 2 good properties there that have bid to us. One that really seems to stand out, and that's the Town and Country Resort. It's a remodeled or at least a somewhat new property. Folks in San Diego who I talked to are excited about that property. This would again be the later September date. Room rate looks pretty good. And they give you also some complimentary things that are very important to have. So this would be if we think San Diego would be a sellable and exciting location for our members to go to. And then last but not least, Las Vegas. We have bids from several properties there, but from the specs we got back, only one really kind of gave us all the data to share with you today. But if you think Vegas is where you'd like to go, we can definitely investigate more. But that would be Planet Hollywood. The thing is with Vegas, and Katie can correct me if I'm wrong, is the F&B tends to always go up a little bit there, even though the room rates go down. So where they really want you to spend is on food and beverage for your attendees. They also, in this particular contract, don't give you complimentary meeting space, even if you meet your F&B, which most hotels in other cities would. Again, that's how Vegas tends to do their business. But good room rate. Vegas, SPJ has been to Vegas before. And, obviously an exciting place to go. Again, this would be late September date. So if you look at all the conference dates in 2023, just to kind of give you a comparison, where the major events land that are peer organizations of ours, we would, either of the dates that have been proposed in these proposals, which would be later September or the middle weekends of October, don't conflict with any of these other major events. They tend to work okay with the Jewish holidays. And the only reason those are mentioned there is because this time of year, those are the holidays that tend to come up more often. So we want to make sure we're careful about that. So in my mind, the dates will work either way. And so that doesn't necessarily have to be the consideration. So now it's about more or less where you'd like to be or where you think our members would like to be. So Katie, what did I miss in that, or what would you add to that?
I think as a quick high-level overview, John, you caught most of it. As John mentioned, there were some other properties that came back, but they just were so far outside of budget that it didn't make sense at this time, I think, to put them in front of anybody. And I would agree. So I have been to all three of what I would say are the most favorable hotels on this list. I've been to the Arizona Grand and held a meeting there. I've held and planned a meeting at the Planet Hollywood, as well as I have cited the Town and Country. They were under renovation when I cited them, so we decided against it at the time, but their renovation has been pretty phenomenal. And it's got some unique features that it is a very historic, like it was a motor lodge, and now it is not that at all. And they have an immense amount of meeting space. And so those three properties, while all in different cities, are very favorable options for SPJ, given some of our budget constraints. The one thing I might add is that as we look at 23, the idea might be, why didn't we get more? Or wouldn't more people want our business? We're up against one really big issue, and that's, as you can imagine, in 2020 and in 2021, there are almost everybody pushed meetings, and they had nobody held live meetings and conferences. And so not just for the journalism industry, but for every industry. And so there is extreme level of compression for meeting space in cities that are high tier 2 cities or high tier or in tier 1 cities, which the tiers really just relate to the amount of hotels they have and the air traffic or the flights they get per day, et cetera. So cities that would be favorable for SPJ have a lot of compression. So they just have very few dates available because SPJ does consume quite a bit of meeting space for our conference. And so we need to be at a certain size of hotel in order to accommodate that. And those hotels, obviously, a lot of other conferences need to be at hotels with large space too. So that is one thing I would note is that there is just, I source for a lot of organizations, and there's just a lot of compression in the industry as people are now meeting again live as a, Q2 and 3 or 3 and 4 of 2021.
Okay, and then before questions, real quick, one thing I didn't mention. So if we do go west, we would, as you look at this list, we would be unique in that, which isn't a bad place to be. So, for those who live on the West Coast, if they're shopping for an event that's closer to them, we would be likely, it looks like, the only one that would be out there as far as our peer organization. So not a bad thing to consider as well.
All right, let me jump in here real quick. First of all, I would, from my point of view, stay under $200. So that one, the 259 in San Diego, I wouldn't be able to afford that. Well, I could this time, but I couldn't. And so I'd like to, at least stay under 170. I also, lived in Phoenix, Arizona. I like that one, the Arizona Grand Resort and Spa. But again, one of the things is walking distance. We got to take Ubers here and there. Outside of that, because some people now, they go to conferences, but they're planning that one vacation. Some people only get 2 vacation weeks or maybe 1 a week. They're trying to do one-stop shopping all at one time. So I'm thinking of that. I like Vegas. I've been to Planet Hollywood, both business and pleasure. It is a great, if you look at their conference rooms, it's spacious, it's beautiful. Yes, they did update it. It's in the middle of the strip. So let's say we have things going on in the daytime, but I want to catch, Barry Manilow at a hotel. I'm going to go, right? Everything is one-stop shopping there. If I want to go shopping and look at the stores at Caesars right across the street, everything's there. 159 to me, I love it. They have swimming pools. This place is made for tourism. And again, flying in, these guys bring in international flights. So flying in is cheaper than sometimes going to some of these other places. Again, I lived in Phoenix, Arizona for 3 years. And so I know those hotels, but I also know a lot of things are not walking distance, not like Vegas. Everything is in front of your face right there. So anyway, that's my input. Katie, I'm so glad you brought these to our attention. San Diego, I love San Diego. To me, it seems very pricey. But I love the ocean. So anyway, and again, when I see your hand, it's board members, whether it's first, second, or third, we're all going to speak eventually. So, if I didn't catch you, the first one, I apologize, but I just go with what I see. All right, Rafael Olmeda.
Sorry, I had to take myself off mute. I just wanted to know if there was any consideration given to the Northwest. Seattle has been a popular destination for conferences in the past. Did we not look there, or?
We did not source Seattle at this time for this year. One thing I will note about Seattle as well is that this is still in peak season for them. We're kind of coming off, like entering the busier season for a lot of tier 1 cities. Seattle could be very, very pricey. They also have very limited product that can accommodate the meeting space. It sounds crazy because Seattle's like a decent sized city, but there is very few hotels that can actually accommodate our amount of meeting space that we require. Not saying that it's not possible, but at this time we did not send a request for proposal to Seattle for 2020.
Okay. Thank you.
Yvette Davila Richards.
Thank you for this information in regards to the hotels. Katie, I had a question. What do you mean, and maybe you and John explained this, when you say that the cities are favorable for, in terms that they need to have compression? I didn't understand that terminology that you used, so if you can please explain it in layman's terms.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you.
So what I was referring to is that because a lot of other groups all across the United States have large conferences as well, medium conferences. And in 2020 and in 2021, they weren't able to hold those conferences. And so they have pushed conferences forward, for instance, in order to get out of some of their contract terms and not have to pay penalties. They pushed those into the years of 22 and 23 if they weren't already contracted. So when I say compression, what I mean is that pretty much all across the country, and especially in really favorable cities like Seattle's and New Orleans and Orlando, all the big convention cities, there's just a lot less availability for dates and space and group room block because so many groups pushed their contracts forward. So SPJ was able to cancel their contracts. Great. That means we are not committed to push those contracts forward, but not a lot of groups either wanted to do that or could do that. And so they pushed them forward, which means when we would normally be looking, those years would have potentially plentiful opportunities for us, whereas we're going to see a lot less opportunities, especially because we're on a very specific pattern request and we want to stay in a couple of months. And so we're really on a limited, about a 6 to 7 week window, less than that if we don't want to overlap with other groups. So when I say compression, just meaning lack of availability, because there's just so many groups that push their meetings forward from years and they're not out for contract, they're already contracted.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle McLean.
Hi, thank you. I'm a little bit concerned that there has been zero mention of the word climate change involved in any of these talks. We dodged a massive bullet this year by scheduling, due to the pandemic, canceling New Orleans this year when we scheduled an event during hurricane season. 2 of these places that we are proposing have experienced record-breaking extreme heat during the month of September. I think, if we do not factor in risk at all, I think we are not doing our fiduciary duty by factoring in extreme weather 4 years from now, when it's worsening every single year. So.
And I just want to jump in real quick, Danielle, because I lived in Phoenix for 3 years, and the hottest, I remember it was 125 degrees one day, and I had to do a story. Usually it definitely is like May until even like the early September. And then suddenly we have a shift. And of course, it's not going to be cool weather. Of course, but it's not the 100 plus. And that's in Arizona. I don't know what it's in Las Vegas. I don't know. I know that our Brian is here and he lives in Vegas.
But the seasons are getting the seasons are longer. So what was September may not be early September, may not be early September anymore in 4 years from now. And so those are things that we need to start factoring in now. We should never, ever go to New Orleans again during hurricane season. That just should never be a thing that crosses our mind ever. Going to a place that going to a desert during mid extreme heat during seasons that are longer, heat seasons that are longer, I think might be extremely dangerous to a lot of our members. So we need to start factoring in some of those. Same with wildfires, to be honest, too, in California. These are just things we need to think about, and we need to evaluate these risks when we're evaluating these locations.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And by the way, since I live in Texas and we have hurricane season too, that was one of my concerns when we thought of New Orleans last year. Thank you for that input. And, Katie and John, just please take note of that, please. Let me see, Claire Regan.
Yeah, just obviously of all the W's, the where is key to all of us. But I also want to urge us to think about the when, because our conference, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been shifting to different parts of different months. So like in 2021, we had it September 2 to 4. September in 2022, we're going to be the end of October. So it's like a 2-month difference. And with all of us serving 1-year board terms, it really does shift around the service. So, going into 23, I would, make sure that we keep in mind the fact that 22 is the end of October, and just keep that in mind, because it can be almost 2 months difference in the dates of our conference each year.
And we obviously as staff don't want to incur that either, because it could mean some shortened planning windows as well. Obviously with the 2022 dates, we had no control. When we decided to partner with the organizations we're partnering with, they had already contracted their hotel and had their everything already contracted. So when we made the decision to piggyback with them, we were at the mercy of their dates. For instance, the reason we're unable to partner with them next year is because their dates and patterns simply don't work for SPJ. And so, like I said, one of the reasons we put out a number of set of dates that John made sure did not conflict with other organizations, other journalism organizations. And because of lack of availability in the industry as a whole, because people pushing meetings forward, you can see for whatever reason, there's a popular week in there on the West Coast where people aren't meeting, that 9/28 to 10/1. A number of hotels had those dates open, but there's just not as much flexibility to say, we're always the 4th week of October and we only want the 4th week of October. It would be so ideal if we could do that. But because we've got low food and beverage that we're trying to meet, and then we have a very, which doesn't sound low, I know, but it is a fairly low room rate as well. We have to, provide as much flexibility on a few other things in order to make sure that we can meet all of SPJ's needs, which is the financial needs of our members, the financial needs of SPJ, trying to stay away from other organizations' conferences. So it does get pretty complicated when we're trying to look at all those different.
Understood.
But I respect not being super close.
Urging everybody to make note of the when as well as the where. Thanks.
And just one thing that I want to bring up, again, while we may look at this as a standalone, I've asked John to see what, NHJ, he brought up IRE, some of these people that maybe, NHJ and NABJ, I think are together in 2023, I believe. But he is looking to see if someone wants to partner with us. So, and all the organizations, that's what executive directors do. So just in case that question is out there, wanted to say, Daniela Ibarra, please.
Yeah, I have 2 things. The first one is for students. Just wanted to piggyback off of what Rebecca said earlier for the 159. I know as a student, whenever I was going to conferences, like that was one thing that I thought of. Some students do buddy up and split the prices, but that's one thing I think we should be conscious of. And also just taking Las Vegas as an example, I know that's a cheap place to fly to generally. Cheap place to stay. So just to keep that in mind, the students. And the second thing is, so I work in TV. So we have sweeps, and there's some newsrooms, including mine, that block off the week before sweep starts. So there's 4 crucial months. It's February, May, July kind of, and then November. And so I know there's some newsrooms that just block off the week before. So just one thing to keep in mind too.
Thank you. And that is something that, I brought to Katie's attention in the past. And I know she's being very conscious of that if we definitely want to have broadcasters join us. And by the way, for the record, Katie was very helpful in our last convention, especially helping us when everything was going live. And we were thinking, oh my gosh, we're nervous about this or that. And I wanted to tell her on the record, you did a very, very good job. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Am I missing somebody? Anybody? All right, John, are you raising your hand? Or
I was just to move us along. It sounds like the consensus is that we ought to investigate Las Vegas, our property that we there, and as well as we can see what any other properties came through. And is there still interest in potentially seeing what the Phoenix property has to offer as well? The one that we like, especially with the pricing and such?
Yeah. I say, give us another option. In my opinion, it's always good to have another option. Look, I know with the climate change and all that, it is hot. And first of all, in Vegas, they're used to it. People travel from all over the world, and they go from hotel. By the way, if you don't go to Vegas, because I usually used to go every year, They have hallways. You don't even have to go outside. You go from one casino to the other casino. You don't even have to go outside ever, because I used to take my father-in-law, bless his heart, with us. And, Pops couldn't walk in the heat. And so that's the only thing about Vegas. I'm not pushing Vegas. I like it. But Phoenix, I say, definitely. I don't know, board, what do you think?
Madam President, remember when we met in 2010, it was at the NHJ conference in Phoenix, and it was so hot in June that we weren't going out till like 8:30 at night. Remember that like we had to wait till like the sun went down plus 2 hours.
But it was a pretty much sold out conference, FYI.
It was, and you got on the board. So that was awesome.
All right, so I'm just gonna, if there's any more discussion, let's, send us emails.
It's real.
Yeah, send us emails. Again, RebeccaAguilar50@gmail.com. Feel free to send me that. Let's move on. I need to, John, anything else? I'm sorry.
No, so the next step in the process will be Katie and I will investigate further, and we'll come back to this board with a firm proposal for one of these, a recommendation for one of the properties with, and then the board will vote to approve that at a future meeting.
All right. Thank you. And Katie, thank you for your help and your guidance in this area. Thank you for joining us today too. All right. I promise I'm going to try to keep this, maybe another half hour. Promise. I'm sorry. But this woman has been waiting to talk to us. So before we go into executive session, I want to ask Catherine Foxhall to join us. She's the vice chair of the FOI committee. She's going to give us a short presentation. Again, Catherine, I'm so sorry that you had to wait this long, about a database tool so that she wants to buy and offer it to SPJ for free. Catherine, you have the floor.
Okay, this company, it's called Leadership Connect. They used to print directories that were expensive themselves. They don't print them anymore. You have to subscribe to a database. There are, I think, 12 or 15 of them, from state offices to nonprofits, whatever. I have honed in on the federal one, the congressional one, the media one. And I'm doing this for myself because, as some of you know, I feel we had a severe lack of watchdog news gathering from the top outlets in the country to newsletters without the severe controls by PIOs, massive choke downs, blockages. And this has gone on for years, like 11,000 people in CDC silenced. And it has been instrumental in giving us a pandemic that is far, far worse than it should have been. So I want to ramp up my research and advocacy work on this. I have been negotiating with this company, which they sell these things by negotiation. There is no price list. And I gave you all the memo. I want the staff and a few people in the membership to have access to these databases to experiment with whatever kinds of things that they want to do with them. For instance, last July, SPJ led 25 groups in writing to the Office of Science and Technology Policy, basically the White House. I followed up 5 times, nothing. I want to be able to see the hierarchy in that office, the phone numbers, the emails, everybody in that office, including some people that I used to know. I want the SPJ to be able to quickly get in touch with 18 people in an office, if that's what we need to do. Instances like the arrest of a journalist for asking questions. I want us to have the contact names and contact information of everybody in every staff members in a congressional office. So it's like that day, very little work. The staff can contact all those people, and they can't, don't tell me go through the main office and then I'll hear nothing. No, you want all the people in that office. This this is what the book looks like on the federal government. It's not published anymore. State Department happens to have 60 pages of names, numbers, and titles. One office is the Washington, D.C. Foreign Press Center. Could be helpful at some point. There are 17 titles, names, and emails. The main thing I want for SPJ is to play with it, think about what we could do with it, particularly as the organization is moving toward more of an advocacy presence in Washington. We need to, if you're going to do advocacy in Washington, you sure don't want to be limited to going through the main number or the main office, because you're in competition with everybody else and you're probably not going to get an answer at all.
Catherine, first of all, I appreciate, and let's just tell them how much is, and I know, I just want to put it out there, that she, is being generous in offering this database, that she's going to pay, I think, between $10,000 and $13,000, correct?
It was $10,000. It grew to 12 when I started negotiating for people in SPJ to have, for certain people, the staff and a few other people to have this. By the way, we cannot share under the contract, we cannot quote, share the data. But, if a chapter is having a specific problem in Montana or wherever, there is no reason they can't email us, somebody, either the staff or one of us who has this information, and we can email 5 people in the congressional office to say, what gives, what is going on here? We have gotten this communication from our chapter in Montana, and we really would like to know what is going on.
So basically, to help avoid the runaround we often get, especially when we're trying to get from the federal government, how many names of federal employees are in this database?
Oh my God, look, this is one page.
All right, okay. Well,
okay, I don't know, but there are thousands, and it's close to 1,000 pages, and this is what the print looks like.
All right.
And the good thing about the database is it's updated every day. Remember, with the congressional database, you just have thousands of people on staff who work for Congress. You want to know the names of people who work for the committees. They are often the brains of what is going on. So you want to know that kind of thing.
Okay, let me take some questions. Claire Regan.
Well, first I have to say, Catherine, your dedication, your passion, your commitment is just amazing. Your generosity, but really your passion for your committee work. And I feel like I want to give you another Wells key today. But I actually was interested in the database, and I did some research on it. It looks wonderful. I know it is very specific to your committee work, and having been on that same committee. And I know LexisNexis is really the, kind of the gold standard for a lot of reporters, but your database that you're suggesting is more specific, and I understand why you're advocating for it. I'm wondering, I have one question, and then I was going to have a suggestion. Is it a one-year contract? Do you have to pay $10,000 every year?
Yes, it's a one-year contract. So this is an experiment. I mean, it's like, do I want to go on with that next year?
Okay.
Does it help SPJ? I really, if we're going to do more advocacy, I would think so. But this is the time to look at it, experiment with it, etc. Just see where we are next year.
Okay,
Get
thank
to know
you.
it.
And I know it seems counterintuitive to say thank you, but and to turn down such a generous gift, but I was hoping that we would consider, are there other options to this, since we have a building sale imminent or possibly imminent, and there's the changing financial landscape in a way. So it just seems like with such a resource, that do we have to rely on the amazing generosity of a member? And it makes me slightly uncomfortable for you, one person, because you're to do your committee work. While I applaud it and I think it's wonderful, the generosity is amazing, I'm just wondering if we could explore if there are other options where the society could perhaps invest in it instead, or if there are any other options that somebody could suggest other than your donation and your generosity. And that would be my question / suggestion. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, Claire, great idea. We should explore, especially, especially if we end up using this tool a lot, somehow, some way, take over in this area. But I like your suggestion, and I like your future outlook on this.
Well, let me suggest that since I've gone through a couple of weeks of negotiation with these people, that we just move with it for this year, and then it'll give SPJ time to figure out what it wants.
Excellent. Israel Valderas?
Yeah, let me say this. Catherine Foxhall is royalty at SPJ. And if she said to me, let's invade the White House to get our answers, our questions answered.
Oh my God.
I'd break the law for her. So pretty much I agree with Catherine. And I think your work in trying to hold government officials accountable and not go through PIOs when we want interviews, I think eventually we're going to find the right test case. And so, I think this is a great way to keep pushing that envelope, because I think, Catherine, you're going to be proven right. You really are. So
I hope so one day. If I could just say one thing, every time somebody says I'm generous, I feel like I haven't gotten my point across. I soaked in public health for 17 years. I know from conversations and statements from reporters from the New York Times, the Washington Post, and many other less known publications that reporters are choked down and locked out. And this fantastic Pulitzer Prize reporting that you get, like from the New York Times, it's two things. It pushes the envelope somewhat for what we know, and it hides the fact that we are not really there. And people are dying right now because of the deficiencies in the federal structure. So I'll be honest, I'm panicked. I'm not generous.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Jake, can you mute your mic, please? I'd appreciate that. Jake, I don't want to hear your conversation. Danielle McLean.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much, Catherine. I fully support this. I support you. I, long watched your initiatives and in this front and attacking the PIO issue. If you at this point, if you say this book is going to really bring some really added value and you're willing to put your own money on it, I say absolutely, let's go for it. Thank you so much for all you've done on this front, and the world is better for it. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Catherine. Real quick, I don't think we need a vote on this. I think that, she's offering it to us. I mean, I don't know. Is John there? Do I need a vote on this? Because I'm for it. I think most of the board here is for it. So I think
I think if the show of support has been pretty, profound, so I don't think there needs to be a vote.
Catherine?
That's fine.
From the board, I appreciate that you're offering this to us. You're very generous. And one day when I make it out to your area, we'll go to McDonald's together.
Thank you.
All right, Catherine.
Thank you.
Also waiting 3 hours. All right. Okay, now it's time to go into executive session to talk about the selling of the SPJ building and discuss our executive director's job evaluation. I am inviting John to this executive session, by the way. And when we're coming out, before we come out of executive session, we will be sending an email, a tweet, just to let all the members who joined us today to come back if you want. If not, just go enjoy your Saturday. This is on video. You know, because I'm looking at this beautiful day out there and I really want to enjoy some sunshine. So, all right, with that, I'll entertain I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
All right, you guys talk at the same time. Who is that?
Danielle.
Danielle, motion, okay. And who seconds it?
I'll second it.
Oh, hi again.
Yeah. Claire seconds.
Claire? It was Claire
All
second?
right.
Okay.
Do I have to have a discussion on this?
No.
Discussion? Well, someone said
I actually, I just want to make sure the two things that you said we're going to executive session for, just those two things, right?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion by Danielle, a second by Claire. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right, seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. We're going to go into executive session. Thank you all who joined us, who's not on the board. Have a great Saturday, or come on back if you really want to. All right, let's go into executive session.
Hey, Rebecca.
Stop
Just a quick thing.
recording.
Is
Recording in progress. Okay. All right. Welcome back, everybody, and anybody who's joined us from the membership. I appreciate it. We're in open session and we're going to make a motion on the sale of the building. Who would like to make that motion?
I will. I move to give the executive director the authority to sell the headquarters building under terms discussed by the board in executive session and execute all necessary legal documents.
Would like to second it?
I can second.
Claire Regan, okay. And so motion by Danielle, second by Claire. Any discussion on this? Anybody? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? No? All right. A unanimous vote. So we have approved the sale of the building and as worded by Daniela Ibarra. All right, that's it, you guys. All right, I apologize that this meeting went a little longer than usual. I promise I will try to keep things tight and to the point. And so that's it for today. I'll entertain a motion to end our board meeting for today on November 20th.
Motion to
End of the
adjourn.
meeting.
It's unanimous.
Unanimous.
I second. Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, we have to still put it on the record, you guys.
Yeah.
You know.
Raphael made the motion.
The motion was made by everybody and seconded by everybody else.
And second by Yvette. I'll just put it, and that's when I say, have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hi, Izzy.
Happy holidays.
Izzy,
Thank you all.
Izzy.
Great service.
Gobble, 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 gobble.
Take care, everyone.